Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid-South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the BNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Maniwa, hit the music.
Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 19 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. I'm joined today by my little brother, pro wrestling's BFF, Papa Maniwa himself, Nick Maniwa. He is the hardest working man in indie wrestling. Nick can do it all, and he should be working full-time in the wrestling business with a job that actually pays his bills. So someone get the fuck on that already. Nick, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, my friend. I'm doing well. Hopefully, someone that has a bunch of money sees this and they go, "Hey, yeah, he's right."
You never know. Maybe Mark Cuban's out there watching or something.
Right, right.
Anything's possible. Think positive.
Yeah.
So just in case someone's been living under a rock and they don't know Nick Maniwa's connection to IWA.
Yes. Well, a lot of people do not, Jim.
You edit this so you know
Yes.
how we start every episode. So just let's briefly go into how you became a wrestling fan and how you were connected to IWA from the very start.
Right.
For the two people that might be listening that don't know the story.
You would be surprised that the people that I say, "Oh yeah, yeah, it used to be a family business, yada yada," and they'd be like, "Oh wow, I had no idea." But yeah, I'm a lifetime wrestling fan. My sister Patty was a wrestling fan, and I kind of latched on to her. She was a helper for the Memphis Territory USWA, and she would help them with gimmicks, help them with concessions, help them sell tickets, help the guys get to the towns, just anything she could possibly help with, she helped. And she, it wasn't just, okay, Tuesdays in Louisville, we'll go to Louisville Garden. She's going to Evansville on Wednesday and Jonesboro, Arkansas on Friday. And then, going to the Mid-South Coliseum and, doing everything you can do on that loop. During those shows, she saw the Bad Breed, who did a little stint in Memphis, saw one Ian Rotten and thought and to his credit at the time, thought he was a handsome fellow. And, hit him up and, they got together and then they were together for a long time. And, before IWA started, I was making towns even back in 95, 96. It had to be 90, it had to be late 95, early 96, because I remember Pondo coming to the house to like meet up to go to him and Pondo were doing the tours around, like Pondo's mentioned so many times before. And of course I don't have any memories of that first IWA show, the Winter Wars in January of 96. I really don't have any memories of anything until the start of something big at the Kmart building in terms of an IWA show. I do remember, going to towns with him and, this person on their gimmick table had a Hasbro Scott Steiner and I didn't have a Hasbro Scott Steiner. So I had to, go see and I could only get one, couldn't get Rick. So I never had Rick, but I had a Scott Steiner Hasbro after a random show that Ian and Pondo did in Boonville or BFE Indiana or wherever the hell they were. But yeah, I've been around since the very beginning. Obviously in 96 I'm 8 years old in September of that year, so I'm not doing much of anything except putting up chairs, being the runner in the concession stand or just sitting behind the gimmick table. But I got to meet Ted Petty on that first. We call it the first, but we always use that as the anniversary in IWA. But they
Well, the
obviously,
start of weekly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was what he had two or three shows that he had done
Yeah,
before
he did
that.
he did the Winter Wars, which was the one Tarek talked about, how he just put him on the flyer. I'm gonna try that one day. I'm gonna put John Cena on a flyer and just hope he sees it and shows up. But then he had a April Blood Showers that I believe wasn't the greatest attendance. I could be wrong on that. Uh, and then maybe something else until the start of the weeklies.
Okay. So one of your favorite photos that I've seen you post is you're always talking about how Jeff Jarrett is your guy.
Yes.
And you're like what, 4 or 5 years old, and Jeff Jarrett's at your house playing with you and stuff. What was
Yeah,
what was it
he
like having the guys just over at your house when you're that young? And
right. Uh yeah, Jeff Jarrett, I really took a liking to him even as like a toddler. Like there's a story of like me like running across the merch tables to like jump into his arms as a small child. But he was definitely one of my favorites definitely back then. Uh I remember when IWA had already started, Billy Jack Haynes was either the USWA champion or he had just lost it or something. And he actually came over to my mom's house and talked to Ian about maybe jumping ship. And I don't think it ever happened, but I've never been that close to a murderer before then.
that you know of,
That right, right.
that you know of, allegedly,
Yes.
allegedly, we got to be careful with stuff like
Right,
that.
true, true. I don't think he
Um,
has internet
but
access
I
anymore.
don't think Billy Jack Haynes ever did IWA,
No,
did
no,
he?
I no,
No.
he never did. So I don't know if it was a question of money or something they couldn't come to terms or what. But I remember him, walking up the driveway, walking in the side door there, and I'm like, holy shit, that's a giant man.
and and his but his like WWF run,
Was like 80 something.
that was like right before you were even born, I think,
Right,
because I
right,
think he
right.
was, for some reason I'm thinking maybe 87
Yeah,
was like his big run. And he had all these opportunities to do big things. And I remember him coming into the Crockett's
yeah,
and getting a big push right off the bat. And I think they put him with like Wahoo. And I think he had a couple of matches with Flair. And I mean, he had the body. I just don't
yeah.
think he had the charisma
He was.
to
I think everything
pull it
I've ever
off.
heard, he's crazy. He's like real life crazy. So like that never does unless you can really hone it in and use it towards your wrestling. You never really get too far being shoot crazy, as they would say. I think the first time I had actually saw him was during that USWA run. So it had to be after because I definitely seen him on TV. So either he was still champion or had just lost it and Ian was trying to get him to jump to the Kmart building, and unfortunately, it did not happen.
But the list of guys that he was able to get to either jump
Yeah,
or do both shows. I mean, when me, Les, and Ben were first going to those shows, you were basically getting the Louisville Gardens, the
right.
best of the Louisville Gardens stuff
Yeah, yeah,
at the Kmart building.
right. You ain't getting no scrubs. You're getting Ricky Morton, Tracy Smothers, Tommy Rich, Doug Gilbert, the top tippy top guys. It's
Well,
crazy to
PG
think. Yeah,
13,
yeah, PG.
Dutch,
Yeah,
Buddy Landell. I mean, they
yeah.
pretty much all came through. It
It's
was
crazy how many times we saw it over the years of, oh well, if you work for Ian, you can't work for me in this area or fucking yada yada yada. These guys are working the same town the same night.
right. And
First match at the Gardens, main event at IWA or whatever the hell.
right. Tracy would start at the Gardens and then he would always show up in the middle of the IWA show. And I think I've, explained it a couple of times on this podcast. He would come in through like the front entrance
Right.
or the side garage door. And when I finally made it onto the shows and got into the dressing room and was in the back and realized There was a damn parking lot behind the building with a door for him to walk through for no one to see. And Tracy's like, nope, I'm going to walk right through this building and I'm going to cause as much hell and riot as humanly possible. And he would try to fight every single fan, and every single fan would try to fight him. And the people, the footage doesn't exist. I don't know if it was, just nobody had the foresight to be running a camera.
Right.
But listeners, imagine the Clarksville building, Bobby Eaton, Tracy Smothers riot. Imagine that happening every single week in a Kmart building, mechanic shop side
mechanic
of
bay,
Kmart, with 500 drunk fans trying to fight Tracy, and Tracy riling them up to the point of, I thought that a war was going to break out, and it was every week. And I mean, the stuff that you got to see was just
people
amazing.
are probably listening to this or listening to past podcasts and are like, 400 people at an IWA show, yeah, fucking right. But it was packed
legitimately
in there, and obviously the sale of alcohol, really helped us. People would come and fucking get drunk and, like you said, wild out and be rowdy, and that's why we had to introduce mullet security to the to the IWA lore, because we needed guys with badass haircuts to make sure nobody jumps the guardrail rope that we had.
Right? who's gonna mess with a 3'8" guy with a mullet like that? And
not me.
Not too many people. And so you had mentioned a little bit about like being a runner in the concession stand and things like that. Is that basically all you were doing on those Kmart shows? Was pretty much hanging out in the concession stand area with Patty and everybody?
Yeah, I would sometimes float like when Ozzy Osbourne passed away, I put up that IWA TV intro that we had using Crazy Train, and someone gets power driven on the stage that I believe it was Gator McAllister's wife, maybe Lisa, but she ran the music, I think. But she used to sit up on that stage, and there was another table, and she's like kind of shielding me to make sure I don't, get bumped or whatever. But, if I wasn't in the concession stand or just, running around like a idiot kid, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, however old I was, watching wrestling, I'm behind the gimmick table with Lisa, maybe, trying to peddle raffle tickets or, whatever they're trying to sell at the time. I'm trying to help them out. Obviously, watching the wrestling, I would sit up there with Lisa sometimes. I don't think I ever rang the bell, on that staging area. That didn't come later. That came later in Charlestown when I was helping ring the bell and stuff like that. But yeah, just floating around. I do remember going in the back and like running drinks or food or whoever to the guys, from time to time.
So out of the Kmart building days, what is the memory that you go, like if somebody brings up the Kmart building to you, what is the one memory that pops into Nick Maniwa's mind from that time frame?
Man, I think probably just because it's mentioned so much, and footage and clips from that era is not really mentioned a lot, because it doesn't exist. But the Flash Flanagan thing, I don't know if I was there live. I do remember, that's kind of like a one shot out of a window in the locker room, like upstairs, I think. And I do remember like being next to that camera and watching out that window and stuff like that. I remember when Ian, at April Blood Showers, maybe got cut really bad, and Patty hit the ring
with Kip Morris.
Yeah,
was that the Kip Morris one? Yeah,
I think he was, trying to produce some blood, and Kip Morris kicked him in the head, not realizing what he was doing at that time, and it hit an artery maybe or something.
It was the most blood I've ever seen in person in my life. And I'm not sure if there's a video of it that exists. It might, since it was an April blood shower show.
It does exist.
There,
I
it
don't know
does
where. Yeah, I
exist.
don't know if it's on Smart
Uh,
Mark. I've definitely seen it in the
yeah.
past, and it's
So for the listeners who haven't seen this, the only way I can describe it, and I think I remember describing it because I used to write results and post it on the AOL Grandstand chat board back then. The way I described it, and it sticks in my mind, is like it was so thick. Just imagine that somebody took like Hershey syrup
right.
and just squeezed it over the top of Ian's head, and it just poured out like it
That's how
was.
dark it
It
was. It
was
was
that's how
blue,
dark it
basically.
was,
Yeah.
and it was one of the just sickest sights that I'd ever seen. And I think that might have, well, was that the very, it couldn't have been the very first
No, because that was
April
a
blood
90. I think it was
showers.
April Blood Showers 98, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's either 97 or 98. And it was just just absolutely ridiculous. Well, I know it wasn't 98 because 98 was my debut, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that was the
So it
case.
had to
And
be
so I think it
97.
was 97.
I'll have to check to see
And
if that's available anywhere and watch it
yeah, I'm
back
pretty
because it's
sure
been
at least
years.
at one point it was,
I was
but
actually Facebook friends with Kip Morris for a short time. I think he's deleted since, but
okay.
his name's not Kip Morris actually. It's, just a
Yeah,
random old white
really.
guy name. So I was like, who the hell is this? And then, they always have the one old wrestling photo for way back Wednesday or something. And oh, it's Kip
Right.
Morris, cool. We talked about maybe me making action figures of him for his grandkids, and nothing ever came of it. So,
Okay. And I think for me, the one memory that I always think of, and just because probably like the role that I ended up becoming and being that kind of a heel,
right,
the thing I always will think of about the Kmart days was Dennis Coraluzza coming out during the Princess Di moment of
right,
silence. And I think I've even mentioned this one on the podcast
yep,
before is I'm
yep,
going nuts in the
right,
front row with like, what in the fuck are we doing having a moment of silence for her?
right,
Because I was so livid that that was all that was on TV for like a week
right. Of
when it
course,
happened. And then Ian puts out, and what the hell is even going on? Just to set up Coraluzza coming out and
hmm
being like, fuck that bitch.
right.
And then
So good.
I gave the loudest pop from the front row and became the biggest Dennis Coraluzza fan on the face of the earth at that moment. And
That's
it just reminds
fantastic.
me of the kind of things that I would end up doing later. But
Right,
that's
right.
always my go-to memory is just how out of place is a moment of silence for Princess
Right.
Di, and oh, this is the greatest thing ever. And
That's
that's
so
always my go-to when it comes to the Kmart. And we didn't really know each other at that
no.
point. Even after I had gotten involved, our paths really did not cross
Right.
until the football game. So we'll just
Right.
jump ahead.
Yeah,
And
I remember little interactions like at the teen club. I think one teen club show got shut down or whatever. So I remember maybe you or maybe Ben Neal, maybe Ian himself or Mac Daddy Mike or someone. They're like, oh, the teen club got shut down, but we're at Kimball. Come to Kimball right now if you want to see some IWA action. Just like messing around to put on the hotline to be like, oh, we're just joking. Show's not happening. We'll let you know, when we're back in action. Uh, but yeah, obviously, when uh, Ian moved out because they were everybody lived at my house, at my mom's house, there for a little bit, and then they moved out, and then when it was go to a show and then go back to the trailer and hang out and eat Subway and the Gold Bomb Mafia dubs their matches and stuff like that. Obviously we're around each other a ton. During those good old days that we didn't know were the good old days when they were happening.
right.
Running up to Thornton's and buying all the random food, and I was a good friends with Danny of Mullet Security, so I would be staying at his house and going back and forth, and then the guys, were going back and forth, and Just crazy stuff like that. But yeah, like you said, not a ton of interaction until that football game. Just just you being around, or jumping in your car to go somewhere, or just random stuff like that.
Right. So to set the scene for our listeners, and I'm not even sure how many, you've had so many different podcasts, and
Right.
there'd be a couple that I was on, and not even have we even
I don't know if we've ever talked
told
about
the
it, honestly.
story?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So,
It was in my live journal, but that I've since wiped from the internet because, I might be president one day.
right. Yes. Yes. You gotta be careful with what you've got on the
Right.
internet like that. So, as most people will know, I went to Morris High School. Football was king at Morris High School. We did the Morris High School show as a fundraiser for the football team.
Your show, right?
This my show. You're goddamn right. It was my show. And this story actually sets up that show happening because, as I've mentioned on here before, Joliet Catholic was the rival for Morris High School at that point. They had Mike Allstott when I was a freshman, and Mike Allstott, I don't think he's in the NFL Hall of Fame, but he was a tremendous NFL football player, and he ran us into the ground my freshman year and knocked us out of the playoffs. And that was the first time that we had played each other. And then it just seemed like after that, every year, Morris would play Joliet Catholic. They're 25 miles apart. We would always end up playing each other, usually in the quarterfinals, sometimes the semifinals, but there was like 3 state championship games, and Joliet Catholic always won.
Right.
Always won. And in 2001, the state championship games in Illinois are always Thanksgiving weekend. Morris was playing Joliet Catholic. It was a 10 a.m. game on a Saturday morning, the same day as the Eyes Wide Open wrestling show.
Yes.
And so we did Thanksgiving. And then on Friday, we drove up to Champaign, Illinois. I got us a hotel room, and it's just me, you, and Ian on
Right.
this
Right.
trip. And we go and we stay at the hotel on Friday night. We get up, go to the game on Saturday. Morris gets robbed at the end of the game. Told the story. We catch what would have been the winning touchdown. The referees call us out of bounds.
Right.
The football coach has a giant picture in his office when we're setting up the show for the Morris High School. Kids in bounds,
Right.
but
Right. Right.
but whatever, fuck you, Joliet Catholic. That state championship belongs to Morris. But whatever, you have the trophy. Fine, it's yours.
Right. Right.
But we're at that game, and Ian couldn't believe the turnout at 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 hours away from Morris, and like the entire town's there.
Right.
And I kept telling him, if we had a show there, if we could do a fundraiser there, it would sell out. We
Right.
would, this is the answer to all of our troubles.
Yeah.
And we're watching, it led to it. But we have to tell the story about leaving the hotel and going to the game.
When you were
And
talking, I was like, "Oh, he's not mentioning the best part. The best part of the story."
Well, I had
you
to
were
get the
building
rest
up.
of
Yeah,
it, but we're going to go back to it.
you had to build
So
up to
this
it.
is the moment that me and Nick Maniwa became brothers for life. And I realized that this was my little trolling buddy from here on out when it came to things, because I'm going to let you tell the story.
Okay, hopefully our stories match up. I remember, um, first of all, I've forgotten that we went up there Friday night for a Saturday morning game. I forgot that Eyes Wide Open was the same, and you would think I wouldn't forgot when that show happened, but I didn't remember that show happened that night. My timeline was totally warped, but I do recall, we're leaving the hotel. I think I walk with you to pull the car around or whatever.
Well, stars don't walk, so we
Right, of
had to go
course.
get the car and
Right.
bring it to the door
Right.
for him.
Yeah. And then when he did walk, it wasn't very well. It was, Terry Funk and Beyond the Map. But I digress. Uh, so, we pull around, regular hotel, pull up to the door. And then we see him coming out. And he gets like 2 or 3 steps out the door and has a paper plate full of like little powdered donuts, I guess. Just,
The continental breakfast at the
free
hotel.
continental breakfast. He's gonna get some snacks for the road, and 2 or 3 steps, out the door, wind comes and just these donuts go so far. It's just they're just out. They're in a different zip code, man. They fly off this plate. Plate goes flying, and me and you are in the car just dying laughing. And, and he screams out, "Quit laughing at me and help me, you jackasses!" And we're like, "Help you how? Like, you want us to pick up the dirty donuts now?"
Right?
So
What you're gonna eat them off the floor?
right.
Like, take your happy ass back inside, get more. They're
He went. He went back in. He got some more, and he had another plate on top of this. So he made a briefcase of paper plates to make sure that did not happen again. But yeah, quit laughing at me and help me, you jackasses! Like, do what?
And that became our go-to phrase for probably 2 years. Like anytime something, we just look at each other and be like, well, don't just stand there laughing at me. Help me. And we would make sure to do it in front of him. And he hated that
Yeah.
so bad.
Right.
He hated being the butt of the joke.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So if anybody sees him out panhandling and you're pulling up to exit and he's waving a cup and asking, like, just put your window down and go, don't just stand there, help me, jackass. So yeah, that was when we bonded and became best friends at that point. Probably over the fact that we were both jackasses.
Right. True.
And but
why we're still friends, honestly.
Yeah. And at that point, we just like I said, we would just hop in the car and go. And we would go everywhere. So we ended up with several little like road story things. One of the ones was around this time we were doing the Dayton shows, Dayton, Ohio, where it's Chris Hero's hometown. Hope that we get some Chris Hero friends from childhood and family and something. And one of the shows was the carnival in the parking lot incident where the building did not tell us that there was going to be a carnival in the.
That was an Eddie Guerrero show.
Who let somebody book a show in their venue when they're doing a carnival right outside?
That's something
there was no parking, there was no, and the building did not tell us a damn thing about it. They just gladly took the money for the booking and come on and do your show.
Some Louisville people actually drove up and they told us like the next week in Charlestown or wherever, yeah, I came to that show and I didn't think it was happening. So I just turned around and went home, like from Louisville to Dayton. Like, God bless.
Yeah. So that building was cursed. But we also ran into a lot of troubles. Like, we actually liked going to Dayton, the two of us.
Yes.
We would go up there and not a lot of flyering would get done, granted.
More than some people did.
Better than most would do it. We actually did get some flyers out when we would do it, but we would go up there and there was this little place called Mom's Diner and we loved that. They had like country fried steak and you'd get this huge meal, be country fried steak, mashed potatoes, a couple of other macaroni and cheese, corn, and it would be like $5.
Right. Yeah. It was super, super reasonable.
And we would go to Mom's Diner every single time that we went to Dayton. And then like the crowds weren't doing the greatest up there. So Ian decides to ride along on one of them to make sure
he can talk to people. He can,
yeah. But he would never actually do any flyering when he would go on these things, but he was going to go and make sure that we flyered.
Right.
And so we're like, all right, well, we're hungry. Let's go to Mom's Diner. And he's like, no, no, we're not going there. So he makes us go to McDonald's.
Right.
And what ends up happening when we go to the McDonald's, Nick?
Well, we do not go through the drive-through. We go inside. We're gonna eat inside, and we're standing there in line waiting to make our order. And we hear a disturbance over here towards the drive-through.
Well, to
And
set it up, we go inside and there's like 400 kids inside this
okay, yeah, I forgot
McDonald's.
about that. I forgot about
There's
that. It
like
was
400
packed.
kids in there because in Dayton they have like a airplane Air Force base museum kind of
Oh,
thing
okay.
going on there, and so there, and it was nearby
Yeah.
this McDonald's,
So the
and I
bus
think
just dropped them off.
I
Yeah.
think every grade school kid in the Dayton area
Right.
had went to this museum that day, and then they were all here on
Right.
their lunch,
Yeah.
and there's school buses everywhere, kids everywhere, line out the door,
Yeah.
and well, we're gonna go inside and we're gonna so he can get 8 refills and use the
Right.
bathroom 3 times and whatever. And so we go in, and that's the scene that we've now painted the scene.
Yes.
You can go ahead and pick up the
Yeah,
story.
I'd forgotten. Now that you mentioned the kids, all I can see is like them just running around, just being kids on a field trip. Just I can see that vividly in my brain now. Uh, so we're standing there, and like you said, there's a ton of people there. So that's why we're standing in line, and we're standing in line for a while too. So we're looking at the menu thing, and then like I said, over we hear some extended voices, some raising of voices. And then I don't know if I see something. I think I hear someone say, he's got a gun. And somebody in the drive-through had pulled a gun on the cashier
Yep.
in the drive-through because they got something wrong or
He was
you
mad
know,
about how long it was
right,
taking
right. And we were like, us
because of
too,
all those
brother, but
kids. Yeah.
yeah, we were like, we're dying over here. We'd rather be at mom's diner. But we're here and we're dying and we're
Dying
almost
over
died.
McDonald's. And yeah, they're everybody, they panic and they start, and at this point, it's what, 99.
Right.
you know when
Two,
were these days? Well,
2000, 2000,
oh
yeah. Oh
02,
one, oh one, yeah.
oh
Oh one and
02,
oh two, yeah.
and school shootings
Right?
were in their infancy stages.
Yeah,
There hadn't
yeah.
been that many of them.
Right.
And you've got this guy pulls the gun in the drive-through. The McDonald's people panic, and
Yeah.
they all start screaming he's got a gun, which then panics
Every
400 young
right.
real kids running everywhere. So then they like tell everybody to like stand up against the window, the
Yeah.
window where you can. So they've got like all these people, and I'm like, a bullet can go through glass.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You
Right.
do not stand in front of the window. You get away from the windows. That's where you
Right.
want the
Especially
kids.
especially the windows he's gonna drive by.
Right. And it's so I mean they had no idea what to do, but everybody's panicked, and we're sitting there screaming at Ian, "You're getting us killed for fucking McDonald's. This wouldn't happen at Mom's Diner."
Right,
And
right.
and
And
we told him after that, it was like, from now on, it's always Mom Diner. You
right.
do not get to pick
Yeah. You lost your
McDonald's ever
privileges.
again
Right.
after that. And I think his answer was just to stop running Dayton after
Yeah.
after the carnival incident and after almost getting shot at a McDonald's.
Right.
Dayton is not where we should be running. So that was.
Do you have you could die going to the bathroom? Do you have that story on there on your list? Do you remember that one?
I don't remember that one. So you need to tell me that one to remind me.
I I think it's me, you, and Ian, maybe someone else. We're driving in Indiana somewhere. I don't want to say it's Highland because we've had stuff happen at the Highland exit or reference the Highland exit, but it's Maryville. It's somewhere up north, driving to get to whatever random Illinois town that we're staying in that night. Uh, And like I think Ian's asleep and he pops open and he's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta piss. I gotta piss so bad. I gotta piss so bad. I gotta piss so bad. And we're like, you're driving and it's kind of like you're about to pass an exit and then he's like, I gotta fucking go now. Like this has to be the exit. So like you go and go take the exit and you like cut someone off or something, you know? And and fucking we fucking, go into a gas station. He runs out, he pisses, comes back, is getting back in the car. And the guy that you cut off followed us into the parking lot. And then when he came back, the guy's still sitting in his car. I don't know if he rolled his window down or opened his door or what. And Ian's like, "Hey man, sorry man. I really had to pee. I'm sorry. It was the last second thing. I'm really sorry." And the guy like it's like I think he was like a bald big black guy. He like looks over at us and he's like, "You could die going to the bathroom."
I don't remember that one, but I mean, that's kind of
Maybe it was someone else. Maybe
maybe
it was,
maybe that's
yeah.
a that was a with
True, yeah.
that's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah,
Um,
and maybe, no, I think it was you. But if it wasn't, it was early enough. Maybe it might have been. I don't know, but it was like like I said, like a last second, like barely
it
getting
very
the.
well could have been,
Yeah, right, right, right.
when you said it was I thought you were going to do the deer carcass in the middle of the road when
No,
you
no,
mentioned
no.
bathroom.
And that was coming
Thing.
back from a Dayton trip, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
So,
it was. It was
so that's
there for a while.
that.
Like all those Dayton trips were bad, and yeah, we're on Interstate 71, and we're just cruising along, and it's just the two of us, and it's middle of the night, and pitch black out, and
We're just bullshitting,
yeah,
talking,
just
looking at
bullshitting,
each other,
talking,
talking about the show, and
and all of a sudden we're like coming up an incline. We're up on a hill, so you can't like really see what's up, and there's just a deer carcass right in the middle of the damn road, right in the middle of the damn road, and hit it and like do a little Dukes of Hazardy,
oh
like
yeah.
fly over the top of it, and no one says anything. No one says anything for like a minute. We're just in stunned silence. I'm still driving, of
Yeah, yeah.
course.
Yeah,
Still
yeah. We
driving, and
didn't, yeah, we didn't crash out or nothing. Yeah.
we're going down the road, and no one has said anything for a minute. And you look over at me and you go, "I thought it was gonna move." And I looked at you and I said, "Well, my bowels sure did."
Yeah, it was the deer legs had to be perfectly like a ramp that we just shot
Oh,
off
we
of,
just
dude.
went right up it,
It
and
felt like we were flying, and you come down hard in a car like that, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, I just bottomed out. Like this is. And like you said, we didn't or anything. We just kept going straight and
yep, just kept
didn't
right on
say
going.
anything. And we weren't looking at each other anymore. We were straight,
Yep.
making sure nothing else came our way.
Uh, and then, but that was another one that became like our go-to. So we had gotten tired of the don't just stand there
Right.
don't just sit there laughing and help me. We all of a sudden changed it over to the well, my bowels sure did.
God bless.
And I had one other road
Yes.
incident
Yes.
on my list, and I had sent you some stuff to try to make sure that your memory was refreshed. So let's tell the Easter Bunny story. And I like how you tell the story, so I'll let you tell it.
Okay, so here's this carload. Jim Fannin in the driver's seat. Myself, Necro Butcher, and Richard X.
What an odd pairing, right?
Yeah, and that had to be Richard X drove over to Patty's house and jumped in with us or something because like I think he lived in Indiana, so it was like something didn't match up here. But I believe we're coming home from a indie show in
I
Indianapolis.
thought we were out flyering for a show.
No, no,
No.
I think this was after a show when we were taking Richard and Necro back to,
Okay.
Patty's house or whatever. So it's like, it's late at night. It's Saturday night into Sunday morning now. So it's like 1 o'clock, because at those Indianapolis shows, we took the ring. Maybe it was that's what happened. We took the ring back from Indy back to Charlestown, maybe put it up because sometimes we would put it up, sometimes we would wait until
Just
the
dump it and
show.
go.
Yeah. So it's late. That's why we were in Indiana, at least going that way. We were going to
Right.
Charlestown first. So, like I said, it's Saturday going into Sunday, so it's Easter Sunday. And we're driving along and, we're talking our bullshit and just making jokes and laughing, playing music. And we're on this, like, it's not a dirt road, it's like a gravel road, but it's like a long road. Like, maybe we missed a turn and we're fucking, detouring on this bitch. It's like just kind of out of nowhere. We went from the highway to expressway to this road, and we're just like, what kind of like, where are we?
Yeah, because
And
this is there's no GPS on your cell
right,
phone.
right,
There's
right,
no every car doesn't have built-in navigation. You're using printed off directions from MapQuest in memory.
right. Yeah, and you were probably like, where am I? Like we were definitely like, we've never been on this road. What are we doing?
Yeah,
So
I
you're not even going, you're going like 30 miles an hour. You're just kind of leisurely strolling down this because we don't know where we are. And
and
a
can't see
bunny,
anything. It's pitch
yeah, yeah,
black.
yeah, it's pitch black, and even with your brights on, you can still only see a little bit. It's like an old country road almost. No trees, no street lights, the moon wasn't out, like it was just nothing. And we're driving along, and this rabbit hops out in front of the car, like where we can perfectly see it in the headlights. And it's just sitting there. And then, it fucking gets down, turns around, sits back up. It's just sitting there. And we're like, okay. And it's in the middle. It's in the middle of the road. And we're like, okay. And it's still just sitting there. So we're like, well, you gotta like honk or something. I don't know. So like you honk, honk, honk. And it's it's still just sitting there. And you're like honk, 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 like turn your lights off, turn them back on, like doing anything to jolt this rabbit, right? And it's still just sitting there. And you're like, well, shit, man, I ain't got all night. So you hit the gas and just go over this rabbit on Easter Sunday. So then, Necro's like, I hope that rabbit didn't commit any crimes because you have its DNA all over your car now. And he's like, not on Easter Sunday, man. This is when people still like the Necro Butcher. You were like, oh, on Easter Sunday, man. I can't believe you did that. You're like, what am I supposed to do? Just sit here? Like, we gotta go.
And he's like sitting there trying to guilt me, like, you just ruined Easter for all those kids. And I'm like, hey man, that bunny committed suicide.
Right,
All right.
absolutely. Yeah, he
He,
wanted it at that point.
he wanted it that like he wanted us to put him out of his misery, so we did, you know?
Yeah, just remember,
Uh
you got its DNA all over your car now. Hope you didn't commit any crimes.
well, I think Necro would know about that.
Right, allegedly.
Allegedly. Again, allegedly, ladies and gentlemen.
This is all
Allegedly.
hearsay, I tell you.
It is. It is. Oh. But at this point, you basically were living on my couch at this point, and you would be at my apartment. Well, me, Shayna, and you would be at the apartment. Like you wouldn't go home for
Right.
a month
Yeah, I
at
would
a
I would
time
just
or
bring
whatever.
clothes or we when we'd go to a show, we'd maybe stop over in Louisville and grab some clothes and take in dirty clothes or whatever, but uh definitely in like a few apartments, I think, right? More than just that one, right?
Well, we had what, two apartments,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it was like pretty much both, and
Yeah.
you
Uh
know,
just over the summer break, like go home after a Clarksville show and then go home the following Clarksville show, with Patty or whoever, back to Louisville after just living on the couch. We'd watch Friends. We would, go to E-Bombs World and dumb websites like that and watch Teen Girl Squad and just live the life of, 20 somethings, a teenager in 2001, 2002,
right?
0203. Yeah. Go to the
It
mall.
barely barely got you through high school.
Right, right. That's why I think Ian on that TPI or whatever, I was like, oh, we got Andy doing the music or something because I was during my senior year, I stayed around Louisville. I didn't really go to shows. I'd go to Plainfield, but I wouldn't go, to Midlow and Joliet anymore, and or Hammond. And someone was like, we want Maniwa, and he's like, yeah, he's failing school. I wasn't failing school. Not all of school, but I graduated, and I've never been a math guy. As a student, I graduated with like the lowest possible like D minus to be able to pass and not fail, whatever algebra 2 or whatever math class it was. And I'm still not a numbers guy. The teachers always said you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket at all times. Yes, we do. So I don't need to know math. I'll just pull out my phone and do math that way. But yeah, I miss so much. And what's funny about me missing days, and my mom really didn't care because besides math, I was a pretty good student. Like if I really applied myself and tried harder, I probably could have been, an AB honor row, maybe even an all A honor row if I really tried. Uh, I wasn't an idiot. I was just a lazy, sack of crap. So, uh, my
Do
mom,
you want to tell the people how lazy you were?
I don't know where I don't know the story you're going to. So,
This is how lazy Nick Maniwa was, ladies and gentlemen. And he's talking about how much school he missed, and he was never at school. This bastard, he could have walked out his front door and taken 5 steps. Well, if he'd have walked out like the back door in
right,
5 steps, he would have been in the parking lot of the school that he went to.
right. Yeah, my mom didn't really care that, I was missing school, but yeah, I could, in 50 steps I can make it to the front door of the school. Uh, a lot of it would be like, "Oh, we're leaving Thursday to go to Muscatine, Iowa or some shit." And it's like, "Well, if we're leaving Thursday, I can't go to school Friday, so, or hey, we're doing a
Well, if we're
show."
leaving on Thursday, I can't go to school on Wednesday. I got to get ready,
No,
and I can't go to school on Tuesday.
I wasn't that bad.
Yeah, you were.
I missed a lot of school, but like I said, my mom was, I wasn't out doing drugs or anything. I could have been probably with the roster that we had at the time. I just didn't
Well,
choose to. I've seen
very
past
easily could
episodes.
have.
I've seen past episodes. I know what Chucky Smooth was in, man. He
Uh-huh.
probably would have gave me something.
Well,
No.
Corporal,
Right.
some of mullet security. You could have fallen ass backwards into it with quite ease, from
Right,
what I
right,
hear.
right.
Um, so then I don't know if you want to get into X's or not
Okay.
with um like, do you have any memories to talk about of when we all went to Wicked?
Yeah, I was dating. She refereed on shows, Heidi Robinette. I was dating her. So me, you, her, and Mickey went from Morris to Chicago for Wicked in a limo. So that was super cool. Uh, we, took pictures. It's like we were the Four Horsemen or something. Really lived it up. Uh, we saw Wicked. Wicked was a great show. We had great seats. Went out. I forget where we ate, but it was somewhere really nice, I believe. Uh, and just really, took in the show really.
And like my favorite was, I've got a picture of you, Heidi, and Mickey, and like the 85-year-old usher, that old woman was like trying to tackle me and like screaming at me, and it's a half hour before the musical even
Right,
starts,
right. I forgot
and
about that.
you can't take the pictures. There's no pictures in here. And I'm like, calm your ass down.
Right.
For crying out loud.
Yeah, I'm taking
What
pictures of my
you're
people.
85 years old. What are you going to do to the four of us?
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
it's like I'm not letting out any secrets. We're not filming the damn
Right,
show.
yeah,
It's
we
we're
don't have a
snapping
camcorder out here.
my back is to the stage.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
taking just
The
chillax a
darkened
little bit in
stage that
here.
nothing is happening on.
And you'd have thought that she was more fired up than if somebody would have pulled out a phone and started filming a match on an IWA show. She was more
Right.
fired up than Ian would have been at that point, and it's like, just chill the fuck out a little bit.
Right.
And one of the things that would happen, and it's the start of every podcast,
Yes.
every one of your podcasts has me on it saying the magic words, say it at the opening of every one of these episodes. And it just tickles me now that after the fact you told me about people playing the drinking game with Nick Maniwa hit the music.
Right. Yeah, I was just telling my co-commentator at Grindhouse yesterday that the first time I ever met Man Scout Jake Manning, who besides being a wrestler, also worked for High Spots as an editor and helped with the High Spots Wrestling Network and stuff like that. The first time I ever met him, uh, I said, "Hi, he said, you're Nick Manoa." I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "I've heard your name more times than I've heard anything else in wrestling." He was like, "I digitized all those one cam IWA shows to put on high spots or make DVDs." He was like, "So, you can't just fast forward that. You have to watch it in real time to make sure, the dubs are happening and whatever else, he's cutting down time or anything like that, minor out of the shows. I every two tell me to we're going or to get the action going, you would say Nick Manuel hit the music before every match, every single match. Even if I knew, okay, after he gets done saying this, I can just hit the music. That was your thing.
Yeah, it
So,
was.
so
Uh,
Jake Manning, who digitized, years of IWA shows, especially the Clarksville, I was telling a guy yesterday, we were running every single week, show on the 3rd, show on the 7th, show on the, whatever, every single week. And it's crazy that,
every
people
week,
were
sometimes every Wednesday, every Saturday.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Charlestown, the Wednesday and Saturday, Clarksville, where it'd be, okay, every Saturday, but sometimes there's a Friday or, hey, there's a ring rental on Thursday. You want to go? And, it's crazy to think about.
Yeah. Well, and your name is ingrained in everybody's mind that ever
Right.
watched
Right.
those things. You,
Some,
you put your friends out there, ladies and
right.
gentlemen,
And
hype them.
still my name, still my all my handles.
Uh,
Someone was asking me about that, and I said, when Patty signed me up for AOL back in the day, I got my first computer. Uh, my grandma passed away, and we got a decent inheritance. So, my mom was like, we're gonna buy the house. We're gonna, take care of some stuff. Like, what's a big thing you want? And I was like, I want a computer. I want internet. I'd seen it over at Ian's house, AOL. I gotta get on this internet, man. So, I think it's fall of 2001, and I get my first computer, and just obviously we're lucky and you're lucky to be around a promotion like IWA, and then you like get on, like you said, AOL or Grandstand or whatever, and you're searching just wrestling. Oh, there's wrestling in California. There's wrestling. You know what I mean? And it's just
right.
this whole entire world that you're living in, but you're also like a part of to be like, man, there's show like wrestling's not just on TV. And I remember like in being in high school telling kids like, "Oh yeah, IWA," and they're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "You watch wrestling?" They're like, "Oh yeah, we watch WW. I watch anything, WWF, WCW, ECW. I saw this thing XPW." And it's like, if you have the internet, you haven't searched wrestling like around here. Like, are you crazy? Like, if I had the internet, the first thing I'm doing is searching like, okay, wrestling around, to see if there's anything live or anything. And I would tell all these kids hey, there's, right over the bridge, 30 minutes. We're gonna have, Kid Cash there, or, whoever, Blue Meanie or Sandman. They're gonna be right, 20 minutes away, or, 20 miles or whatever the hell it is. And, I think I only saw like three kids that I knew in school ever at a show. That Francesca chick that used to be around, she was somebody I knew from school. Uh, the guy that used to run Deathmatch Worldwide, Corey, and his cousin Clayton, who I went to school with, they actually went to like the last week or two of the Kmart building. So they saw the last show and then thought IWA just died because they didn't know where they went. They didn't have the
Right.
internet. So like, Francesca signs my yearbook like "See you at IWA" or something, and Clayton, who I was friends with already, goes IWA like Dixie Highway, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? He's like, dude, me and my dad and my cousin Corey used to go to these shows, and I was like, are you fucking serious? So they used to go back in the day, and then one time this kid that I was friendly with came to a show, and I went in the back and told Chucky Smooth, "Hey, this kid I went to school with is in the third row over there." And when he came out, he fucking made a beeline for the kid. He would only get the front row fans. Usually, he
Right.
went through the rows, and probably shouldn't have because the kid was definitely high school age. Dancing. But what a good friend, Chucky Smooth,
Right.
dancing on the kid for me just because I was like, "Hey, that's my kind of
Uh,
friend from school."
nice. All right. So one of the stories I wanted to tell on here was the one time that you openly defied me and made me so mad at you. So you probably know where this was going.
Yes.
If you want to tell your version of the events the night that New Jack was in Highland
Yes.
and me and you almost got into a fight over you defying me.
So what's crazy is I know you've told the story of you guys in that back hallway. And I only know that's where you guys, or was it in the, no, it was definitely in that back hallway by all those cabinet doors or whatever that were there in the locker room,
Yeah.
because I had came back there to ask you something. So I had walked up right before that moment of New Jack having the Sharpie, your white shirt, and he's, and you're like, fucking stop, like don't fucking do that. And he's like, whoa, just being an asshole, essentially. He was drunk, so that only escalated things. And you said before, like, who the fuck are you? And you're like, I'm the motherfucker paying you. Like, show me some respect. Like, fuck off. And you know, I remember Hero being there, and like, hey, don't, hey, it's everything's okay, whatever. Uh, so then that kind of, dies down. You're over him as a person. You're not gonna say anything else to him. You're not gonna, whatever. He's done. Uh, so the rest the show's going on. It was a cage match, right? They were setting up a
Yes.
cage, so we have some downtime. So New Jack comes out. I think maybe he came from his gimmick table. Uh,
Yeah. I'm not sure where he came from, but yeah, he ends up in the ring.
he grabs the microphone and he's just, hey, how's everybody doing? Just being an idiot on a microphone essentially. But he finally, he gets the microphone and he's just bullshitting, doing whatever. And you're already so pissed. You fucking already hate him. So you don't care what. You don't care that there's downtime. You don't care. You'd rather the fans sit in silence than listen to fucking New Jack. Say whatever bullshit he's saying. And in Highland, back behind one of those basketball hoops, the hard cam is right underneath it. I'm behind Smart Mark. I'm behind the commentators and a table usually next to that retractable wall in Highland that went out into the hallway. So, I got my little T table set up, speaker here, my soundboard, my CD changer. I wasn't like you kids nowadays that could just double click. I had to fucking move CDs from one thing to another. For TPI, I had to have a 5 or 6 disc changer just because he booked matches with 9 guys in it. And how the fuck are you going to play 9 guys' music when you only have 6 discs? But I digress. And another speaker, and you you come out You come out of the curtain, or maybe we just had the door set up then. Uh, but you
I
come
came out the
out,
curtain. I ca-
and at first you're like, what the fuck is going on? Because I don't know who's talking on the microphone. And then you see it's New Jack. And you're like, fuck that. And you beeline over to my table and you start pulling the speaker wires.
no, 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 no. Before I started pulling the speaker wires, I told you to kill his mic.
Turn his kill his mic. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. New Jack is a the Gypsy Joe thing has already happened. So he is known for stabbing, slicing and a stabbing. So I'm not going to do anything to upset him. So I'm like, no, I'm not. Yeah, I forgot about that. I'm not cut. I'm not. I was like this. I think like I'm
You,
not
you
doing
just kept going,
anything.
nope, I ain't doing a damn
I ain't
thing.
doing it. Yeah. And you come over and you start pulling the speaker wires and you fucking hit the left one and then you go across and you hit the right one. And then as you're doing the right one, I'm putting the left one back in. And you're like, quit fucking putting them back in. I said,
Oh,
Jim,
I
I'm
was
not.
ready to
Just,
beat the
I
shit
was
out of
like,
you.
I was like, Jim, just let him like be done. Like he's gonna get tired of this and he's gonna finish. So like, just let him finish. He's not, like, I don't want you to get stabbed. So I was like, just let him finish. And then like Patty walked up to the ring and she was like, I think the one that finally got him off the mic
Yeah,
and
she
got the
finally got
show.
him off.
Because she knew him. Nobody clipped that of yeah, she finally got him off. She finally got him off the mic. I don't know if Patty wants that out. There.
Well, you know,
But yeah, like I said, Patty came up. Okay, let's go. Like, hey, whatever, and got him off. They got the cage up. We had the main event, and on we were. But yeah, I was like, man, New Jack's has stabbed people, man. Mass transit happened 10 years ago, man. Like I'm not cutting this mic. I'm whatever he wants to say, let him do it. We'll cut it out of the DVD.
yeah, and the people are like, "What in the hell?" They like
Yeah, it was like he
could
was
not
like
believe it.
yeah, it was like a stand-up routine. He was just like bullshitting.
Well, wasn't he saying something about like going to WWF or something or getting signed and
Yeah, I
just
think he
rambling
was
and
supposed to be the guy
rambling?
that stabbed John Cena, I think. So I think that was happening at that point. Uh Yeah, our good friends John Wayne Murdoch and Reed Bentley actually had New Jack's last match.
It
Yeah,
was a wild night. And then I
yeah,
just remember like Tracy Smothers smoothed everything over in the back,
right, right.
and then New Jack just came up and kissed me on the cheek and said I was the craziest white boy he had ever seen in his life.
There you go.
And you know, so I got Tracy calling me the toughest ring announcer in the business, and New Jack calling me the craziest white boy. So
Right.
you know, uh,
I was watching an old New Jack interview, and they asked about Tracy, and he said Tracy's a crazy son of a bitch. So if New Jack is saying you're crazy, that's why Tracy was able to smooth that over so quick because
yeah,
Jack respected him.
well, yeah, it was that was a night, and the look on Hero's face when Hero's tried to break all that up, and he just kept going, Jim, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I ain't taking
Right.
that shit from nobody.
Right.
Don't care who it is. Uh,
I don't know
so
if you were I don't know if you were standing there, and I'm gonna say you probably were, but do you remember when Ian sent Kid Cash back to, or he was gonna send Kid Cash back to the hotel? Do you remember that?
I remember, I remember something going on where he was pissed that it was his birthday and like he did not want to have to work on his birthday. And so
Okay.
I remember I buried him on commentary
Okay.
during the match because
Okay.
but I
So
don't
so
remember.
maybe you didn't see this. I went back there to ask Ian something, or it was maybe intermission, and I was waiting to ask him something, and he's like talking to Kid Cash, and he's like, "Bro, you're a surprise." Highland always had a surprise of some sort. He tried to do that anyway. It's Sabu. This one was going to be Kid Cash. Golden Vampire, just like something random, something, kind of surprise. A lot of time it was like ECW guy, Balls Mahoney is a surprise or something. So we always had a surprise, or he tried to do on those Highland shows. And Kid Cash was upset that he couldn't put out his merch before the show started. This was before the show. Before the show started. And Ian said, "You're a surprise. Nobody knows you're here. I do a surprise every month in this building. As soon as your match happens, you can go and put your merch on the table. You can go from the ring to the table, but you can't do it before the show." Kid Cash ain't having it. He's pissed. Oh, I don't make a, ton, or, whatever you're saying. I can at least sell merch, or, whatever, whatever. And Ian just like looks, and it had to be Vince Jones or someone. He said, "Vince, take Kid Cash back to the hotel. I will call Bill Behrens and say he didn't want to do business, and that's why he didn't work my show." And he goes, "Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait a minute, Ian. We don't have to do that." My little lower hand thing popped up, so I was like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! We don't have to do that." And Ian said, "Dude, as soon as your match happens, go to the merch table. I don't care." And he finally he didn't want to get told on, so he listened to Ian and came out as a surprise, and not had his merch out at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I just remember that when he first got to the building, he was just whining and complaining because it was his birthday. And I went back.
I forgot about that part.
And he was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to work on my birthday. And I'm sitting there going,
he was fired up.
It's like, dude, you're not turning 16. You're
Right.
not
How
turning
old are
21. You? Why the fuck is it? Here's a thought. Tell your fucking agent, don't book me on my birthday.
Right. You would think.
Or when he calls you and tells you, "Hey, I just booked you to do this show," to say, "Hey, man, that's my birthday. Can you call him back and tell him I don't want to work it?"
Yeah.
No. Instead, you're going to come here and you're going to bitch and whine because it's your fucking birthday.
Right.
Like, you know what I did on my fucking birthday? I got thrown into barbed wire. Whoa,
right.
Big fucking deal. It's your birthday. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
And so I remember I buried his ass on fucking commentary that whole match, and I loved doing commentary with Prazak. A lot of the times I thought that we were really good together, but then there'd be other times where like I'd get fired up on something and Prazak would try to be Mr. Diplomat and Mr. Professional, and he would just start getting, and the more uneasy he got, the more I would dial it up just to fuck with him on it, And so the more he would sit there and squirm that I'm like even bringing it up, the more I had to go into it. And I'm like, oh, tomorrow it's his uncle's birthday. Can't work on my uncle's birthday. That's a special day,
Right. God bless.
Like, oh,
yeah. I forgot. That's why he was fired up, and so he was already pissed walking into the show.
Yeah. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about on this one was that anniversary show that never happened.
Yes.
In 2009. I talked a little bit about it on the podcast with what was supposed to happen between me and Jimmy Jacobs to get me out of IWA.
Right.
And, it was supposed to be the, like, I quit, I respect, loser leave, IWA forever.
Right.
I think at one point there was the talk of adding lumberjacks so that there could be all these wild brawls between everybody to try to pass time. So one of the things that was going to happen was, since it was my last night, I wanted to bring back the BMFers. It was one of the things that I wanted to do. And when we brought them back at the 2006 TPI, they kept getting fired by Ian. So that it was a very short run and I didn't get to do, the angle that I wanted to do with them. So I wanted Bull and Mitch to be at my last night. So they were going to come back. I wanted you to take my place managing on shows, wanted you to take over. So you were going to like manage.
Right.
And we went to the Kmart building and I still haven't been able to figure out what
I
happened to our versions of the
Yeah.
files. But when I looked it up, like I went back to when, my wife had sent them to you
Right.
a long time ago. And when I looked at it and we started looking at things, we realized I drove, my wife and we drove to Louisville
Yes.
to meet up with you, Mitch, and Bull, and we went to the old Kmart building and we shot all these little vignettes in front of the Kmart building. I think did we just mention Roland's grave or did we
Well, I
go
think I
over
think I think Bull ended up leaving, so then Mitch went over and we filmed a Mitch promo in front of
in
Roland's
front of the
grave.
roll?
Yeah.
So we were going to do this whole thing where the bad motherfuckers were coming back to teach these young kids a lesson, and it
I
was going to
feel like
be
I feel like it was either a 6 man or an 8 man, and we had people that were going to be there at the show, but they weren't with us to do these
right,
promos. And
right.
I don't
I
remember
can't
who they
remember who was going to join us, but of course it was going to be somebody like Pondo Corporal, that
Right, yeah,
era.
yeah. An older
I can't
IWA
remember
guy.
who it was going to be, but it
Right.
was going to be
Because it wasn't just a tag, if I recall.
right. It was not a tag. I know it might have been Cash. It might have
Okay,
been
maybe a
Cash,
six
Bull,
man.
and Mitch. And then they challenged, we were going to challenge Ryan Phoenix to get
Okay.
two people to team with him of the new school
Right,
guys.
right.
And it was going to be, those guys managed by you. And we were cut all these promos. I think there was like 5, 6 promos that we had and had
I
cut.
remember fucking up at least one or two because I had never cut a promo before. I'd
Yeah, it
never
was like
done
your
it.
first promo.
I did, commentary like that 3 times that you had called me over. I hadn't done anything really. So I was just like a nervous wreck being, years later, I would go on to like book Bull and Mitch and like tell them what they're doing for the night. And they just listened to me and did it. And, 2 or 3 years earlier, I'm like, oh God, I can't get out 2 words because, these fucking legends are standing next to me,
But I remember we looked up and I got so mad because this was just a couple weeks ago after we started discussing doing this and what to talk about, and you brought this up, and we looked at it and like the files were saved by the date that we filmed them,
Yeah.
and we filmed them like I think we figured it out where it was the week before Ian had made the announcement that it was going to be the last show on August
Oh,
28th
oh my God.
because
So we didn't have a
he had
fighting chance.
right. He must have saw the
Yeah,
promos and been
yeah. He
like,
was
"Oh
like,
my
yeah,
god, that was horseshit.
they
We're
killed the
closing up
town.
shop." But yeah, like all the like I'd have to go back and see what the weekend was
Right, right.
in 2009, but the date on the videos was something like August 15th,
Yeah,
August 19th, something
right,
like
right,
that. And the very last show
right.
of IWA Mid South was August 28th.
Yeah.
So like I went down there again, just more drive down, get everybody together, film all this shit,
Yeah, I think we definitely went
get
out to
ready
eat
to run,
afterwards.
get ready, went out to eat, filmed all this stuff, get the angle ready.
Right.
And then not
Done.
even a week later, he
Right.
posts on the internet, "This is it, shutting down IWA, no more shows."
Right.
And at that point, I was so fucking pissed off at that point that I
Right.
was like, "That's it, fuck
Yeah.
it. I'll show up for August the 28th, and I'm gonna go to the ring, cut my promo,
Right.
basically saying I fucking quit." And you know, because at that point, I knew he was gonna run again. I was pretty
Right.
sure he wasn't gonna run again within a month.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
not even he pulls that shit of this is the last show and then run again the next month. So
Right.
I think it took him like 3 months
Yeah.
before he decided to run again at that point. Um, so
That one is
we ended
was
up
it was
missing out on that, and now
yeah.
for some reason the Google Share drive that
Yeah.
she had like shared it with you. You said it's on like an old laptop, but
Yeah, I
I'll
might
keep
have
looking
yeah.
around and
Yeah, I
see
might
if
have it on an old laptop.
I'll keep looking around and see if we can somehow
Yeah,
come up with that
right.
footage and go ahead and release it. But yeah, you can see the very first promo ever cut by
Yeah.
Nick
And then
Maniwa.
that was what 2009, so it was like 2 years. No, it was that 2011? No, it had to be, yeah, 2011. Uh, I managed Reed Bentley and Big Sue Jackson twice for Ian and Mitch Ryder for their short-lived ARA, American Wrestling Association shows that him and Mitch Ryder were running together. Uh, they ran an old building that Mitch had found during the XCW Midwest days. So Ian and Mitch are the top baby faces. They're partners in this company. We run a couple shows. So I manage Big Sue Jackson and Reed Bentley against the Alpha Breed, which was students of Billy Rock, Remy Wilkins, and Trevor Court. We're supposed to do a match to set up to a maybe Falls Count Anywhere or Street Fight or something, for the next month. Well, we're at the show. They get word that a carload's not coming. So we got to do the return tag later that night. So I like I get involved with the first finish or do something to get us to, a street fight or something with gimmicks. They're brawling in the crowd and stuff. Uh, and then the next show, it was Sue and Reed against Ox Harley and Spider Nate Webb with me, Mitch Page, as the special guest referee.
Wow.
So yeah, so really mixing generations here. So at some point in the match, Alex Harley turns on Nate Webb. So they fuck off. Bentley and Mitch and Sue and me are kind of jaw jacking, with Mitch as he's still in the ring, doing his referee thing or whatever. And then as he gets out of the ring, I kick the rope to nut him. He goes down, and Bentley starts like face washing him in the corner. So like we're coming back with like it was supposed to be like Reed and Sue against Mitch and Corp or something. Uh, but he starts kicking Mitch in the face, and Mitch is like, "Yeah, bring it on! Yeah, more, more, more!" And young Reed Bentley wasn't the grizzled vet that he is now, so he's just throwing his 175 pounds as hard as he can into Mitch Page's face. And we're like, okay, we're coming back with the big match. Fucking before that show, or maybe after the show, at some point during that show, one of the local guys that Mitch used to use in XCW Midwest, he was at the show. He might have done like a dark match or something. He was like a capable guy. He was decent. Uh, so so he's like standing there against a wall, and like Ian's standing next to him, and this guy goes like, "Yeah, that guy's a dickhead, or that guy's a fucking asshole or something." And Ian looks and he's pointing at John Calvin. So he's like, "That's my fucking son." And him and the guys start jaw jacking, and like they get into it where they have to like get that guy out of there and shit like that. And like just if I recall correctly, the guy's family had something to do with that building, so like we never fucking went back to that building again
Ugh.
because he called John Calvin an asshole or something, and Ian couldn't have that, so he jerked the guy up, and like town of Corden, Indiana never had wrestling again.
Wow. Well, along those lines,
Yes.
I didn't have this story down, but I will tell it just because I like the punchline at the end. And we would try to do the commercials every once in a while.
Yeah.
And, it actually surprised me when we're doing the commercials, like just how cheaply you could, it cost quite a bit of money to put the commercial together.
Right, right.
But then it like surprised me, like what some of the commercials cost.
Was it like $30 a spot or something, or was it
Like
even less than that?
some of them was even less than that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you could, so you would go to the cable company in the Louisville market, and they could like really condense it down
Yeah,
to
yeah.
specific, to where it wouldn't even show in all of Louisville.
Right, right.
Like you could just put it in like Fairdale. You could just
Yeah,
put
yeah,
it
yeah.
in Shively. You could just put it in, and these are just little suburbs for you people that are not familiar with,
Right, right,
not
right.
even really suburb, just like little sections of town,
Neighborhoods, yeah, yeah.
neighborhoods, you know. Um, but you could get it that
Yeah,
individualized,
yeah, yeah.
and you could tell them, okay, I want you to run my commercial on ESPN between 6 a.m. and 12 p.m. and you could buy spots for like $7,
Right, right. Because
and
it's,
they would just randomly insert it. But then if you wanted it in a specific program, so
right.
you could pick like, I want this spot to run during Raw, I
Yeah,
want this spot to run during Nitro,
right.
whatever, then it's like $30.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But and that would like get you the entire area that
Yeah.
the cable company, would cover. And so it was crazy as to, and I don't think they had a, you have to spend this
Right,
amount
right, right. No
kind of
minimum.
deal. So we do one of the commercials, and we buy the, of course we want it to air during wrestling.
Right, of course.
So, we did every once in a while, we would do those, hey, it's ESPN, just put it on anytime.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe somebody will see it. It's
Right.
$7. Hey, maybe
Yeah.
one person, you just need one person to
Yeah,
see it
yeah, yeah.
and come
Pays
buy
for
that
itself.
ticket,
Yeah.
and it's paid for itself. So we would do some of those, but the important thing was, hey,
Right.
this needs
Monday
to be
nights. Yeah.
on Raw, this needs to be on Nitro, whatever.
Yeah. SmackDown
And
eventually.
so
Yeah.
we're watching, we're at Ian's and we're watching the Raw, waiting for the commercial to air. And it never airs. So Ian calls the guy that
And
was
wasn't
the
it like
sales
wasn't it
rep.
like the show was like that Saturday or something? It was like something where,
Right. It was like
it
the
wasn't
show
like get you
was
next time, kid. Like
right.
we needed
Right.
it that day.
It was for the show coming, the
Yeah.
week coming up. It needed
Right.
to air
Yeah.
at that point. And Ian flies off the handle, and he gets on the phone. And of course, the guy's not in his office at 9 o'clock at night on a
Right,
Monday,
right, right,
whatever.
right.
So it goes to the voicemail, and Ian decides, I'm going to leave this voicemail, and I'm going to come down there and I'm going to kill you.
Oh my
And
God.
like, he's like threatening to murder this guy
Right.
because this commercial didn't air. And he gets off the phone, and I looked at him and I said, that is going to hurt us.
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't think that I should have done that? And I'm like, no, that guy's not going to do business with us ever again.
Right, right. He's
We're not
never
going to be
gonna-
able
yeah.
to, we're not going to be able to buy commercials anymore.
Was I not
He's like,
supposed to do
you
that?
think it'll be that bad? And I'm like, and I looked at him and I said, dude, when I have to be the voice of reason,
Right.
when it comes to being irate, and
back
I'm the
then,
voice of
especially
reason,
back then.
we're fucked.
Yeah, pal.
We're fucked if I have to be the voice of reason here, because that should have been me,
Right, right, right.
doing that. And you hadn't to call me, like, this is not
Right.
going to work if we're both at that level.
Yeah.
If I'm the voice of reason, the world's in trouble,
Right, absolutely.
and that became, and of course, then the guy, called him back and was like, we're going to give you a refund, and
Right.
don't ever call us again. And
Yeah.
so we were never able to do commercials in the Louisville market after that because he called and legitimately threatened to come down and kill the guy over a commercial not airing. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of things for why we didn't do advertising. But
Yeah.
um, you just bringing up the him costing himself a building by getting mad because someone called John Calvin a little shit when every single person in the dressing room
Right.
15 times a week would call John Calvin a little shit. Um, you know, and if John Calvin, if you're listening, you know that you were a little
Right.
shit. Yeah,
Right.
it's
He's
you know,
well
I
aware of his reputation.
it was a reputation well earned. There was to tell another John Calvin story to
Uh-oh.
just let the people know. Were you over at the trailer the night he hit Pops in the face with the
I was not. I don't think.
he had like it was like the plastic little toys and it was like a rake or something like
Oh yeah.
plastic something and Pops is sleeping and he just goes up and wham just drills him right in the face with the damn
Yeah.
thing. And because that was just what he did. And
Right.
a lot of it, the guys would rile him up and
Yeah.
put him up to shit like that. And
He was a
but
product of his environment.
he was a product of his environment. It does take a village, ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen, and when the village is a bunch of wrestlers,
Right.
some things are going to go wrong.
Right. Absolutely.
Some things are going to go wrong. So, John Calvin was a little shit, and the guy probably was not wrong to say he was probably acting like that at the time.
To John Calvin's credit here, I don't even think John Calvin was doing anything. He just like didn't like him. He was just
No,
trying to bury him. I don't even like in that moment. He was just like helping like tear down the ring or something. He wasn't even doing anything offensive. He wasn't being a little shit in that moment. But that guy was just like, man, fuck this kid. And
okay.
I don't know if he knew it was his dad or not. He probably did. He probably didn't care. But yeah,
And maybe he was sent there by Joe Bailey and Jim Cornette to
right,
just
maybe,
instigate the issue.
yeah,
Um, but you had mentioned earlier with the Reed Bentley and Big Sue and Mitch and Nate and Ox as to what a mixture of eras that
yes,
was. So I haven't really ever I've mentioned in passing a couple of the guests that I've had on ended up doing another run with IWA after I had
right.
quit and left and would just briefly mention. But since you were such a big part of shows and so involved, we'll do a little deeper dive for some people that want to hear some IWA dirt from from the times after me. So to just ask a little bit, I had sent you some of this stuff so you had time to try to come up with some
Right,
answers.
right,
So we'll see what you've come up with. Who were the in your mind, not who became your best friends.
right, right.
They could be the answer,
Yes,
but not asking as to who you liked friend wise the
right.
best. Who were the top 5 guys that became IWA regulars after I left?
Obviously, you said don't mention your friends,
Well, I
but
said not
yeah,
because they're your
not
friends.
because they're my friends, but they're actually great professional wrestlers. But obviously, John Wayne, Reed Bentley, there was multiple years where their feuding kept IWA crowds coming in. They did so many. Reed Bentley was like such a perfect like bullshit chicken shit Memphis heel. Like John Wayne finally beats someone for the title. He finally has his moment. Reed Bentley cashes in a contract on him, beats him in 30 seconds to take the belt from his supposed best friend, and he screws him over, which leads to John fighting his way back to the title and all the bullshit and all the stipulations, and they did no rope barbed wire and they did all this crazy stuff. Uh, to really sell this angle, and John finally beats him, and so definitely got to have the rejects on that list. I always mention on these podcasts. I just did one for the Deathmatch United group on Facebook. He was kind of talking about guys that maybe people didn't see, that later era of IWA that, I was a major part of. And I always mention like Tyler Matrix and Logan James and Kevin Giza, Lucas Jacobs, even Adam Slade. Those are guys that uh, got started at OVW and then started doing. They did a Michael Elgin used to do these like week long camps, and they did a Michael Elgin camp, and Elgin was like, "Y'all need to be in IWA. Like y'all are good. Like you should. That's where you should be wrestling at, not OVW." So kind of like back in the day in the 90s where the USWA guys jumped ship, all these kids, came over and started working IWA. So, Aaron Williams had uh, he was the world champion and he had an open challenge, every single week or every 2 weeks, however often he could be there. And one of the first guys that answered it was Tyler Matrix, who was a former OVW champion and the top guy of the franchise over there. And now he's in IWA. And all those guys were so good. And I remember like there's some shows, there Jim, there's 47 people there, there's 23 people there, there's however many people, and these guys are wrestling like it's WrestleMania. And like you said, you try to keep business and personal relationships, away from each other. I looked at these guys as my friends, so I would be down in the locker room being like, stop killing yourself for 20 people in Jeffersonville. Like, wait until you're on a bigger show to do this stuff. Like, don't you guys do enough like in the ring? You don't have to jump from the ring to the over the guardrail into the third row or jump off the balcony or just do all this crazy shit. You don't have to do death matches if you don't want to, but these guys were just they went for it and fucking worked their asses off and they were so good. And I wish more people got to see like that 2021 to 2020 to 2021, 2022, when we stopped running era, because you could go back now and watch it like a TV show because it's episodic. We ran every Thursday at the Jeffersonville Arena. We would run sometimes in Memphis at the flea market on Saturdays. We could do death matches there, which we can't do in the arena. So he would go and do like a big death match show in Memphis, and a crowd would pop up, and it'd be 300 people there, and great DVD to sell and shit like that. But every single week these guys are busting their ass, and I just don't. If you wasn't there live and you wasn't an IWA fan already, I don't think anyone's going to go back and watch those shows or watch those matches. And it's a shame because these guys were killing it. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, doing stuff I hadn't seen before, somehow, some way, in all of my years watching wrestling, and just, in front of people that are super into it. And then, of course, we got the old timers that don't pop for anything. Miss Donna ain't fucking chanting, fight forever or nothing. So it's like a mix of like, do people like me, or is it, do I suck? I don't know if is it too quiet, or is it, no, it's just, the old timers that didn't want to clap and, look up from their phone. But
Okay.
yeah, Aaron Williams, of course, he's the only guy. He has tied Ian's record as an 8-time champion. He was on track, if I'm not mistaken, to beat his record and become a 9-time champion. And that didn't happen before the company shut down. Aaron's a great wrestler from Cincinnati. Uh, just can do it all, not scared to get bloody. Uh, Back-to-back TPI winner, which is something that never happened before him, just to show you how much Ian really cared about him and respected his abilities. Back-to-back TPI winner, 8-time IWA champion. Just really brought in Jeff Cobb and all these guys to wrestle with him because he really liked them. Jake Chris, unfortunately he burnt the titles because he was owed money, but he was a guy that he said it on interviews too. Like during the pandemic, nobody was running shows but Ian, and Ian would, take care of him and make sure he's, doesn't have to go get a job or, whatever. And, there's times where Jake Chris gives his payback so 3 or 4 young kids can, get a hamburger after the show. So it's like, he really gave his blood, sweat, and tears and, even his money at some point, to IWA to help out, that future generation or help out the company or, it was always to help out someone else more than it was to help and, go home with a little bit of money. It was always like, well, if he doesn't pay me, he can pay 4 or 5 green kids, a tank of gas where they don't have to walk out of here for with nothing.
But do you think that he was actually giving that money to the green kids, or
I
just leaving it
I
with it in his own pocket?
I know I know quite a few of the kids that did get paid, so I can only
Okay.
judge off that.
Okay. So on a flip side of that,
Yes.
I had, you know, and this should be easy. You should probably be able to come up with a list of like 50
Oh
because
no.
of how easy I had made this one. The top 5 guys that I would have hated, since I hate everybody.
You do hate everyone. Probably all those kids that I mentioned that came over from OVW, just because it's a different personality. I don't think you would have understood the genius of Lucas Jacobs, to be quite honest. Uh, yeah, I don't. You guys would have been clashing. I don't think he would have had a separate locker room like Simon says or anything, but you definitely would have stayed away from him just because he's a silly little goose.
Okay.
Uh, who else would he have hated after he left IWA? Jeff B says everybody, which is
Well, I
not
mean
wrong.
that's
I
the
mean,
answer.
uh, yeah, I'm trying to think of just. I can't think of anyone with like we didn't have any Shane Storms or anything. We didn't have anything that was offensive that you would have hated in terms of wrestling sense wise or logics. I don't recall. Yeah, maybe Dewey Wellington because he was 100 pounds soaking wet and he liked the kid, so he put him over and he feuded him with Jimmy Jacobs and uh, you know, gave him big matches and big opportunities, and the kid's just like a fuck up. So it was like, not even just a fuck up in real life, so not even worth having him on the wrestling shows because he's not the best person or doesn't. I won't say not the best person. He doesn't make the best decisions in his personal life, which he uses his shoot name or close enough to his shoot name that he's the same person. He's his character is him essentially. He's fresh out of high school, which he was. So, he's himself. So it just reflected on his character. And I felt like the minimal heat that we did get for using someone like that in terms of not being a good person wasn't worth what he gave us back in terms of his match quality or his performances. Like we could have done without those and not gotten, the peanut gallery being like, "Oh, you shouldn't use this kid." No offense to, I like the kid. I don't agree with any of his decisions or anything like that. No offense to his wrestling skill, but I don't think the heat warranted, what our return was on that. So I think you would have hated him.
Okay.
Just because of all the things I just mentioned, you would have been like, this kid's a fuck up. I don't know why we're using him. He fucking, I
Well,
don't
there
know.
was there was plenty of times that there was plenty of times I went to Ian and said, "This guy sucks. Get
Right.
him off the show." And then Ian would be like, "Oh well, let's give him a chance, and maybe he could improve." And like, no, get him.
Right. That's the one thing about IWA. You had maybe, if you're one out of a million, you had maybe 2 shots to shit the bed at IWA. Usually it was you shit the bed once and we never fucking see you again. Because it's like, oh, I'll put you against this guy. He's our fucking Lance Storm or whatever. He's Tracy Smothers. Anybody that has a match with him, it's going to be a good match because the other guy is in the match. And the guy would be on vacation over here, staying with someone over here for 6 months, and shit the bed the first week, and all of his buddies are making the trip every week to come down for the show, and Ian's just not booking that kid because he shit the bed. So it's like you had one opportunity to shit the bed, and he might give you a second chance, but usually you were done.
Well, I mean, the first impression is everything,
Right, right.
and that was how it worked a lot of the times with me. And I've talked about it ad nauseum at times, and one of the more famous cases was Austin Aries against Ken Anderson when they
Right.
came in, and like that match was so putrid and so horrible that like Ian didn't bring them back, like didn't bring Austin Aries back for like 2-3 years.
Yeah, it was a
After
while.
that, it was a long time
And
because
then
of
they
how
went
bad that match was.
and then a funny thing about that match is they like begged to be on that show because it was like a big show. It was like Styles Clash weekend or something. So it was a massive show. Small Mark Video's there. AJ Styles is in, whatever. And Ian's like, no, like I have like 10 matches every night. And they were like, we'll work for free. Well, then, like, I want to say within the last year or two, I think Austin Aries or maybe Kenneth, one of them like said something about like, yeah, we didn't even get paid for that. And it's like, you begged to be on the show to be around all these people, man. So it's
Right,
like, you mofos are rewriting history. We know there was no PayPal involved with that one, pal.
right. And that's the thing that, irks me to this day with some of this stuff is there is 5.7 million reasons that you can be pissed off at Ian Rotten and talk shit about Ian Rotten, and then people pick made up shit,
Right, right.
or invent things, or whatever. To It's like there's enough there. You
Yeah,
don't need to
yeah.
make shit up.
We don't have to
Just
fantasy book this, pal.
go with it.
Yeah.
And then another famous case, or at least I don't know how famous it is, but it famous to me along those lines of the Aries and Ken Anderson is, when Ian was pushing the Tomasellis as
Yes.
being, the best tag team,
Yeah.
and people on the boards were like, we want bring in the Briscoes,
Right.
bring in the Briscoes to face the Tomasellis. And I put my foot down and was like, absolutely not doing it. And the whole reason was because when I took Ian to what was the shows that Todd Gordon ran after he left ECW?
Oh,
Was it
PWU.
PWU, whatever they were
Yeah.
called out there? And I took Ian out there to like 3 shows or something like that. And, that was the only time that I ever saw the Briscoes
Right.
because I wasn't watching Ring of Honor,
Right. Right.
you know, and I took him to these shows and I watched, and man, they sucked.
Yeah.
They absolutely sucked. I couldn't take watching them. And then Ian's like, "Oh man, no, really, they're great. They're great.
Right.
They don't care about this show.
Yeah.
There's nobody here. They don't care. They're
Right. You're
not going
mailing it
to hurt
in. Yeah.
themselves.
Right.
This isn't what they would, they would, this isn't what you would get if they were
Right. They
facing the
wouldn't do it to
Tomasellis."
me. Right.
And I'm not putting my money
Yeah.
into that because the odds are there's going to be 25 people in the crowd
Right. Yeah.
and they're
Who
going to get
knows?
here and they're not going to do shit.
Right.
And I'm not doing it.
Right.
And so when it was all had to be his money, you know, and so that
Yeah.
would be my
Never came in.
advice. That would be my advice to the guys out there working. And, you were saying earlier, telling the guys, don't save some of this for the bigger
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
crowds or whatever. There's a difference between don't go out there and die in
Right.
front of
And
20
mail it
people
in. Yeah.
and go out there and mail it in. You
Right.
still
Right.
have to still put forth an effort, still put forth a good show, but you don't have to like do the over the top insane shit that's
Yeah.
gonna, potentially end your career.
Right.
But that was the only time I ever saw them.
Yeah.
And I saw them 3 times and they blew ass all 3 times. I wasn't going to touch them with the 10-foot pole.
Right.
Certainly wasn't going to put any money into them because, what's to say that they're not going to do the same thing on our show?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so they never, they ended up making it. They ended up being okay without it. But,
Right.
some guys, if you're watching this, you don't know who is going to be in that small crowd
Yeah,
that you're going to not impress
right.
and ruin your shot with. So,
See,
don't dog it.
yeah, that's one thing about I guess just the respect that people had for Ian. Even when there's nobody there, people are working their asses off, having these crazy matchups, and I've had someone who is a world champion now on TV ask me like what do we have to do to like get people here? Like these shows are fucking great. Everything is makes sense and the promos and like everything he's like it's so good. Like if more people saw this, like they would lose their mind at how good it is. And I'm like, bro, I don't know. I don't know if it's, people don't even know we exist. You know what I mean? We're in the back of this flea market in Memphis. We can do whatever we want there, but it's like nobody's there to see it unless, it's a Kings of the Extreme or Guardians of Hardcore. It's a giant deathmatch show that he's bringing people in and he's building gimmicks and he has all this shit. They're not coming every week. It's not 300 people there every single week, and it just sucks because there's all that good shit and all this uh you know great wrestling that nobody ever saw because they hate Ian or they just to circle back around on that, they'll never watch it because they have their opinions on IWA, and you can if someone already feels that way, you're never gonna be able to sway them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Uh, but those. I mean, you saw it. The countless years you were there. I saw it. Just guys. Like I said, I don't know if it was a respect thing or what, but they just cared so much, and it was like I can't people watch IWA. I can't shit the bed here. I gotta, you know, Gabe or Danny or someone will eventually see this, and I'll be working there instead. Uh, yeah, so that was like, even during COVID when we could only have 30 people in the building, or, once it got to like code orange, we could have 25. And then if it got to code yellow, that was a little bit better. So we could have 50 people. And then if it was no, whatever code, color, code, whatever, we like our top could be like 100 people. And one time we booked a show that was a big Saturday show. We were only doing like weekly Thursdays, so like people that couldn't make it due to work or whatever, they were coming to this Saturday show, and there's like 150 people there. We're nearing 200, and we're only supposed to have 100, people in the building. And Ian's at the ticket table and he's kind of freaking out, like, oh man, I hope the fire marshal doesn't show up. I hope someone doesn't show up. I go, Ian, don't worry. At this point, I was doing every job in IWA besides wrestling and refereeing, so I was the ring announcer. So I said, don't worry. If the fire marshal comes in, I'll just get on the microphone and say, everybody run around. They can't count us if we're running around. And he did not have that same reaction. On the night of the show when there's 150 people in his building. He did not think it was as funny as you and I just did. But
uh,
that was my plan anyway. Everybody run around. They can't count us if we're running.
or just shout out random numbers if they're counting. It'd be
Right,
like
right,
5,
right, right.
12,
Yeah.
15, 37, blue, green. Ah, shit, we got to start all
That
over.
would have been good for Taxi Cab James. He would have been a pro at that game.
He probably looked at you and been like, all right, Mitchell.
Right, right, right. Yeah, he did not fire me that night, thankfully.
So, how were you able to make it all the way to the end? And how close did you ever come to actually leaving before the end?
Man, I mean, I've posted it countless times. I've said it countless times on social media. I have a sickness for this business. I love this. If I'm not watching wrestling, I'm listening to a wrestling history podcast. I'm listening to a Bruce Pritchard podcast, or uh, I like Between the Sheets, where they talk about years previous in the dirt sheets. So they go through and Tom Pritchard's going to WCW every single month, and he never goes to WCW. Just like stuff like that, or hearing names on those shows, and then never seeing a picture of them, and being like, "Oh, I didn't know Ray Candy was like a big black guy. Like, what the hell?" And just, Sweet Daddy Falcone. I didn't know that was a white guy with a mullet. Like that freaked me out when I saw his picture on Twitter like a couple weeks ago. But what was the question? I lost it.
How did you make it to the end?
Yes, how did
And
I make it
how
to the
close
end?
did you
So
come to
so
actually leaving?
yes. So like I said, I love this business. I love every part of it. I love booking. I love helping young talent. I like doing social media for, I do a couple social media accounts for Generation X Pro Wrestling that I help with now, on top of doing commentary and helping with the production. And I just love all of it. Like I think pro wrestling is the greatest art form that's ever been existed or ever been invented. It's there's it's everything rolled into one. It's every kind of entertainment rolled into one. And it's like, I don't know how you watch a Terry Funk match and you're like, this sucks. Or I've blocked like six people recently about talking about Terry Funk on Twitter. Like, I don't know how you don't watch him and be like, he's the greatest that's ever done this. So like, I don't know how you watch pro wrestling and don't want to be a part of it, don't want to have any part of it or any interaction with it. So every week I would from 20 IWA came back in 2013, in like summer of 2013. I was working at U of L in the dorms doing security overnights at that time. Uh, so I was doing overnight security where I think Thursday was my off day. So that means I got off at 7 o'clock, uh, that morning or whatever, slept, got up, went to the show, and I think I only had one off day because I remember sleeping a lot. But I would go to the show, walk in, put my stuff down, go to the table, get the lineup from Ian, any kind of business. I'm writing it down to make sure, if you've ever seen an Ian Rotten finish, this guy comes in A, B, C, D, E, F, G, fucking sometimes all the way to Z. So I'm literally writing it down in a notebook to make sure we have all the business for the night. I'm going downstairs. I'm writing it on the whiteboard. I'm going around to everyone, telling them their business for the night. Hey, can we do this instead? Let me go ask. Go up there. Hey, can they do this? Yeah, I don't care. Hey, doing whatever. On top of that, getting everyone's music, getting everyone's introductions, getting any notes for commentary every single week. After I do all that, I go to my commentary booth. I rip or download any music that I need for the night that I didn't already have. I make a playlist. I get an intermission playlist going. On top of that, I'm putting up my hard cam. I'm white balancing. I'm testing the microphones. I'm also ring announcing, so I'm getting my notes off of my phone and putting them in a separate note so I have everyone's stuff, match by match. I'm, uh, getting something changed, someone's not coming, I'm changing stuff like in the middle of the show. Once the show starts, I'm ring announcing, I'm bell ringing, I'm timekeeping, I'm doing commentary, I'm manning the hard cam if they move in the arena and roam cam's not right on top of them. And I don't say this to be like, look how cool I am, I did all this stuff. Like, I just did all that stuff because that's what I had to do to make sure that show happened. You know what I mean? Our good friend Val Capone says, "You never say no to making the show go." And I did that on a weekly basis from 2013 to 2022. And, I know people think like, oh, man, I was an idiot. He did all that stuff for free. Or like, to me, it was a family business. Ian was my brother, essentially. Like, I grew up with him. He was a role model in my life. He taught me everything that I knew. And, uh, always helped me be a better wrestling fan and learn about stuff and telling me to watch the Super J Cup and stuff like that. So it's like, he was, even though we were by, marriage, like he was my brother. Like I felt like that was my brother. And, you know, being a part of helping out, like as stressful as it was, and like I was doing all those social media too, even though they knew how to do it, they would hit me up to put it out instead of just like typing it themselves. And I'm sure you ran into that as well. Uh, And it's like you have it. Like I'm just type it correctly instead of just, whatever. Uh, but I just I love the business. But that last show was in uh what is that? What's the I can't think of the town name. Something Heights? Was it something Heights? I don't remember. Uh but it was a rec center, and this is 2022, so I have both of my kids already. Nick Jr. born in 2015, Tegan Rose born in 2017, or 2018. See, I'm not great at math. Uh, so I already have my kids, so I have to find a babysitter to come watch my kids because Jess is at work, to jump in a car with Logan James to drive to the arena, Two Tough Tony's arena, to jump in with Tyler Matrix to go from there to Summit, Illinois. I think that was the town name. Go up to the IWA show, and we get up there. I'm like looking around, and on the way up there, I'm already like, I don't want to do this every single month. I don't want to have to get a babysitter. I don't want to have to leave my family overnight. And not overnight, but like we got up there at like 5 or 6 Chicago time, and then we didn't get back to Louisville with the time change and shit. It was like close to 5 a.m. with like gas stops and stuff. So it's like, I'm gone 12 hours. I'm dead tired. I fucking did everything all night. So like on the way up there, I'm like, I'm gonna either tell him I need to get paid for this and he'll fire me, or if he doesn't pay me, I'll quit because I don't want to do this every month. Like I not for free. I can't like I started he started those shows in 2013. It's 2022, so it's like 9 years of like free labor. Like if he can't throw me something, then I got to just stay home. There was I worked at the Omni Hotel for a year after Sis was born, and there was times he found a building in Connorsville, Indiana, which is like 2 hours away, middle of nowhere town. That a guy was running, stopped running, so he took it over, ran a King of the Death there, and then he was kind of doing weeklies or every other week there. But there was times I couldn't get off work because I worked overnight, so I would just like send my camera with like instruction of like, here's how you white balance, here's how you put a memory card in, here's how you do this on the music, you got to plug it into this and this to get it to work. And I was so over it by the time I got to the show. And then I get to the show, and like I'm sure people have seen the stories online. I've had people mention it to me, like about that ring, and he didn't pay for the ring, and that was the ring for the show. And then I'm like looking for the music laptop, and there's no music laptop because it got locked in a building because he didn't pay rent. So that's why we don't have merch. We don't have the music laptop. We don't have a ring, our normal ring. And, but I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how bad stuff had gotten. I was only around them at shows. I didn't hang out with them or anything like that. So I didn't know what was going on. So after the show, I'm like taking out my stuff, and like some of the bigger names on the show were putting up chairs and stuff. And you don't normally see that. So I'm like, oh, what's going on here? Like something's going on. And then the kids come up to me, Logan and Tyler, they say, hey, you ready? I said, yeah, let's go. And then we're walking out the door, and it's like Forrest Gump rain. Like it's raining so hard in Illinois, and we have to drive home to Louisville, in this shitty weather. And I go, he pay you guys? He said, no, he'll PayPal. He said he'll PayPal us on Monday. And they were supposed to give me some money just to help with like tolls and give the kids gas money, because I didn't want to be that guy, even though that's where a career long reputation of the guy just jumping in with people. I didn't want to be that guy not giving toll money or something. So they were supposed to give me money and pay me back from a loan, and they didn't do it. And then after that, I was like, I'm definitely not doing this anymore. Not every single month. If it's a TPI, if it's a King of the Death, I'll make the trip, I'll make the arrangements, but like this sucks. Like, you know, I think, usually like if we need to do something, we'll get Patty to come over and sit with them. I think Patty couldn't do it, so like we had to get like a friend to come over and sit for it was just like a cluster of a deal. So I was like, man, I don't want to do that. Uh and then, the next month Jake burnt the belts, and then people are hitting me up. Is this a shoot? It's like, well, we didn't. I don't think Ian Rotten's gonna burn up anything of his own, man. So I think this is real. And then I last talked to him in June of 2022. I don't have any ill will towards him, but I don't have anything for him anymore. That's I gave my brothership, for however many years. I gave free labor in the wrestling business for 9 years. I feel like I paid my dues, more than once over. So I got nothing, and it's just a shame because like me and Bentley really tried to like rehab the image of IWA, and like, you got to send out this merch order, or you got to do this, or you owe someone tickets because, you canceled the show, or someone didn't get their, whatever. And, we're on his ass, or, just trying to get him to, just be better. And, I felt like we were like really like doing something there. And then it's all for nothing because, it always is, I guess.
Yeah, well, you did it 9 years, I did it 12.
Right.
Who knows how many others did it for however long, and just an absolute shame that, you know, take advantage of people. And
And it's like when you start to, yourself and me and John, family members, and his best friend Harbo, when it comes to, screwing people over like that, we're the last people on the Titanic, playing the violin. You know what I mean?
right,
Like
we're
like
rearranging the deck chairs as we're
so
going
it's
down.
like,
And
so it always, people always say, well, he never did it to me until he did it to me. And I really felt that shit, because it's like, oh, he's my brother, like he would never do that. And I'll never take away all the knowledge that he gave me, and all the lessons I learned, and all the experience that I got. I definitely wouldn't be able to do half the stuff that I do now without, those years in IWA. But I can't be that guy for him anymore. And I don't think he expects me to be, or anything like that. Like I said, no ill will, but I served my time. I'm out on bail. I'm not going back.
right, yeah, that's, I mean, I feel every bit of that,
Yeah,
and you toughed it out. I just put myself into exile and, you know, tried to distance as far away as
right,
humanly possible. And
right.
it's instead of ending like this,
Yes,
let's have a little bit of a more upward beat
yes.
in that. So let's talk about Mitch and Roland into the Hall of Fame.
Mitch and Rowland. So I'm not in a ton of them anymore, just because like some of the drama in some of those Facebook groups is just like, can we be grown-ups here? But I'm in quite a few of those deathmatch groups on Facebook, and someone had posted a bunch of pictures of uh, older CZW guys and older IWA guys. And I don't remember exactly the CZW guys, but it was people that weren't in the Hall of Fame already. And then it was like Corp and Mitch and Roland, and just like, some random guys that, really don't get their flowers or get much love. And the guy said, do you guys think these guys should be in the Deathmatch Hall of Fame? And I was like, hell yeah, like all of them, they're all fucking legends. Like, of course they do. And Brett Lauderdale replied on that group, like, yeah, yes to all of them. Like, they all deserve it. So I thought that was cool, liked his comment. Hopefully that, push my guys through, And it was maybe a week later, or it was very shortly after, he said, do you think Mitch would come if I put him and Roland in the Hall of Fame? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Did I At that time, me and Mitch were not talking, and me and Mitch have since made up. We're comrades once again, but at that point, he was not talking to many people outside of his immediate family. Uh, so I had not talked to Mitch in a while. Uh, so maybe I asked you if you maybe had his number to make sure I had the right one. I wasn't sure if he had the same phone number. It had been some time since we hung out. I don't remember how that, or maybe I just texted it randomly to see, hey, is this Mitch? Or I forget how, but I hit him up and said, hey, man, uh, Brett hit me up and he wants to know if you would come. He wants to put you and Roland in the Deathmatch Hall of Fame. He was like, call me. He's a talker. So I called him and we are talking about it. And I didn't know all the details really because I had never uh, gone to the Deathmatch Hall of Fame, never, only watched it on TV, so I didn't know anything about it. So, he's asking me stuff. I'm playing middleman, going him to Brett, him to Brett, him to Brett. So, if you know Mitch, as me and Jim do, sometimes he's very high on himself, sometimes he's very low on himself. Sometimes in a comedic fashion, but most of the time in a serious fashion. So, he's like, man, I don't know, man. I don't know about it. I don't know if I'm gonna do it. I don't know. I'd have to get it off work, just trying to find some excuses maybe. And I was like, man, you got to. Like if you don't, like, what do you have if you don't? Like that's what I was feeling. Like, IWA's fucking burnt alive. We don't have a Hall of Fame. You've never had any kind of credit like that. Like if you don't do this, like, and so I'm just trying to sell him on it, like, oh, yeah, you got to. And I think he gave it out to his family of like, do I do it, do I not? And I think it was Turner that said, you got to for Roland, like you have to do it for Roland. And it just sucks that so many people didn't get to see Roland during his prime. And they see the stuff now and it's like, yeah, it's a crazy gimmick, y'all. I understand
Yes.
that. I understand that. He had some finishing move names that were not appropriate. I understand that. He is as tan as he was a white man. Uh, but also to Roland, Lenny Montgomery, if you will, he lived his life that kind of culture. He had the gold tooth, he had the fade, he had the little check in the fade. That's how he lived, even though, he used that as his wrestling gimmick as well. I don't know, it sounds like crazy bullshit now, I guess, to kind of explain that gimmick, the kill Whitey sign and stuff like that. But, I feel like if, Roland didn't get sick and he was still around, when Ian started back in 2013, like it would have been him and Mitch, like on those shows every single week, tagging,
Yeah.
probably feuding again, tagging again, probably feuding again. You know what I mean? So it's like the only thing that, cancer took him out. So like that's the only thing that kept him away from IWA is because he wasn't here physically to be a part of it. So, I'm like I said, just pitching and selling. And Brett's like, "What do you think? Is he gonna do it?" I'm trying to buy, plane tickets. I'm trying to, trying to get this done. And then, he finally took it to his family, and Turner said, you got to do it for Roland. You got to do it for his memory." And that helped Mitch sign the deal. And once that happened, I told you, and you were like, I got to be there. And I was like, you got to be there. And I didn't know how the fuck I was getting to Atlantic City. I I just knew that Brett said, "I want you to do the speech," and I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And like I said, me and Mitch, and again, Mitch wasn't talking to anyone, but me and Mitch wasn't talking at all. He
Yeah,
wasn't
he wasn't
really,
talking to,
yeah,
I would send messages and he would never respond. And we talked a lot. I was trying to convince him and being like, do it.
yeah,
um but yeah, it took Turner and Fannin and Sherry telling him, this is, you need to do this. if not for yourself, then do it for Roland. You
Right.
know,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
that was so much fun.
Yeah, that was I mean that was a great weekend. We got to, hang around. We went to get food. We, just got to be around each other, and we took him to the airport and just got to hang out like old times. And it's like me and you never got to hang out with Mitch like that, but you and Mitch hung out like that, and me and Mitch hung out like that. So it was like a perfect combination of like
Right.
all of us, finally getting this moment where, from the way we talked, we were like, I don't know if I'm still friends with him or not. You know what I mean? I don't know if he likes me or not. So, to get that weekend and, writing that speech, it's like, I told, Matt Tremont, and I told people, I wanted for people that didn't know Mitch and Roland or didn't know the history, like I had to give that, Wikipedia-esque, here's what they did, here's how they started, here's what, the moments that they had before I got into the roasts and, doing whatever, the funny haha. Like I wanted to give the proper respect to their careers, all the blood, sweat, and tears, the all the lost fans that I mentioned in the speech. Had to give love to all those fans because they were there from the very beginning. People like DJ Donnie and Miss Donna and Taxi Cab James and all those people that, just supported IWA with their whole heart. And, you don't
Vic.
half-ass anything. Yeah, Vic, Big Daddy Vic Von Erich, and, all these guys and gals and non-binary pals that, you know, get love IWA and loved, the wrestlers. And, you have so many memories with people just from shows. And, it's Miss Donna. If she on a few shows that were not IWA shows or IWA quality, she'd be like, wrap it up, like go, like go to the back, like this sucks. And it's like, if you can't respect that, man, I don't like, what a badass. Like she was the best. Uh, yeah, getting out of everything I got to do that weekend, which I got to call the majority of TOS. I got to call some marquee matches on Cage or Survival, but the speech is definitely number one to me. And then the other two, are tied for 1B because it meant everything to be able to give them their flowers. So many of those IWA guys just get no respect. And I've talked about it on podcasts before. Like, nobody was going as hard as we were back in the day when we had our own building, whether it was Clarksville or Charlestown, especially Charlestown. Like these guys were having big death matches on Saturday and then cutting a promo being like, I want you in 100 tubes on Wednesday. Like the next fucking Wednesday, they're having another crazy death match for 75 people or something. And it's like, the only reason nobody knew about us is because we were in Charlestown, fucking Indiana. And I don't have nothing against Charlestown, Indiana. I have some folks that I like the company of in that town, but nobody fucking knows that it exists but people in Charlestown, Indiana, or people that
Right.
saw the CM Punk DVD. So it's like, that's the only reason like nobody saw our shit. And then, of course, Smart Mark comes in for King of the Death 01, and that really helps us to finally get the video love and stuff like that. But you mentioned it on Kickboxer and Tarek's podcast, like they were just right before, and Suicide Kid and Tyrant and Wild Child and all these guys that are just like doing insane stuff. And I'll probably eventually put it out, but that first IWA show where he put Tarek and Kickboxer on the flyer, didn't know if they'd show up. They showed up and he put them in the opener. These guys are doing stuff, and you got to remember it's January 96. They're doing stuff, and people are losing their minds. And there's not that many people in the building, and they're jumping up, and it's like stuff that you hadn't even seen on Nitro yet, really. And they're doing
Mhm.
Ranas out to the floor, and this, and this, and this. And it's like, if those guys would have been right there with Smart Work Video, they'd be talked about like Amazing Red and Quiet Storm and the SATs and all those guys that had that East Coast press. You know what I mean? And it
Right.
just sucks that we were just, in fucking
Wrong place, wrong time.
God love Kentuckiana, but God damn Kentuckiana at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
No place I'd
And
rather be, but in 2000 to 2002, if we could have been any place other than Kentuckiana, we would have been, this would be our post run wherever we were. We're on the Conrad podcast network because we've already
Right.
had a run somewhere else, fucking Charlestown, Indiana.
Well, and just to go back to the Hall of Fame, I'm gonna give you shit about this till the day that I
Yes.
die of
Honestly,
you waiting until 2 seconds before the damn countdown clock gets to zero to look at me and go, oh, by the way, you're going up there with me. Uh
yeah, I thought I told you.
no.
I wanted to get in my CCW fans' favorite poster, Jim Fannin, but people started I I my ending was so good they started clapping seriously before I got to my punchline for the CCW fans' favorite poster. So you can't even hear that really when you
Yeah.
watch it back, which is very upsetting. I also skipped when I was reading and sweating my ass off during that speech. I also skipped the line of uh, me, Mitch Page, once held the record of most firings in IWA, but I think the Rejects gave him a run for his money just to get in the, you know, Bentley and Murdoch have been fired as many times as Mitch Page, but I skipped over it as I was reading my notes, so I missed that one.
Yeah.
Missed the Raz on the Rejects.
Yeah, but I mean that night, and I've said it, and you talked about with Mitch and Roland and having to one of the selling points for Mitch was think about your legacy,
Right,
and them going into the Hall of Fame made me think about what's my legacy.
right,
There's no halls of fame for me, but there maybe there could have been something,
right.
and all of a sudden we get a podcast and we get a comeback, and so that was a very important turning point and meant a lot. But the
Yeah.
fact that you fucking waited until 2 seconds before they went live to, and I mean, I wasn't even sitting up with you and Mitch. I was in the very back of the damn building, and I didn't even know if I was really welcome to be there, and that's how many bridges I thought I had burned
Right.
and stuff. And when you were like, "Oh, well, I got you a ticket to get in for the regular show,"
Yeah, yeah.
like I was gonna be in the room going, "Well,
Right.
I don't think I'm welcome here," and whatever else. And then you're like, "Well, come up here and sit with us at the table. We got a spot for you." And
Yeah.
so then I go sit at the table, and then, oh, by the way, get up there, and I'm like, "Damn it, I'm
Did you
not
have to
prepared to say anything." And
did you have to climb the funky stair setup that
oh,
they
that
had?
damn stairs thing! What
Because
the
Zandig
hell
hurt
was
his leg
that?
or something.
I was like, Jesus Christ,
The first time I
all
saw it
out of
was
here.
on camera, so you just see me go like, "Oh, what the hell is what the
Yeah,
hell is
I
this?"
it's like, what is going on here? How am I supposed to get up into the ring? And but it's probably a good thing that if anybody's listened to these damn podcasts, it's probably a good thing you didn't tell me ahead of time, because
Right. You
we'd
would have had a
still be in that
speech.
building with
Yeah.
me talking if
Yeah. Right.
if
Yeah.
I had been
Tripping balls
prepared
might
for
have.
it.
We might have had to made a call for tripping balls if that was the case.
Oh goodness. So let's go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. We still got plenty of stuff to talk about on a
Right.
future episode. So, we don't have to always burn through everything with
Right.
one appearance if we want this thing to keep going on in the future. So, what does Nick Maniwa have to promote that's going on out there? I heard that we had a husband wife commentary team over the weekend.
We did have a husband wife commentary team for a couple matches for Hooligan Championship Wrestling. They are based out of Evansville, the Evansville National Guard Armory to be exact, where IWA used to run all the way back in 2004. I think just 2004, maybe 2005.
I think it was just '04.
Yeah. Um, Jess Beesneys made her commentary debut at Girl Fight the past Sunday. So she I was gonna she I we double booked ourselves, so I cannot make uh Hooligan Championship Wrestling's all female show. I am booked elsewhere already. So they're gonna use the team of Jess Beesneys and Just Jay for that show. So as to
Cool.
introduce Jess to that crowd, I wanted her to do some commentary on the Queendom matches for the Elevation show that Hooligan Championship Wrestling put on. If you're an IWTV subscriber, it should be up there very soon. I would say within the next week or so. Elevation, I do commentary with Jess Bees Chase Nally, and Buddy Lee Bodell on that show. Great, great action all night long. They do a real good. They used to be a every 2 or 3 months kind of promotion. They're kind of going monthly or at least more frequently. So they just had a show in January, which definitely helps the flow of stuff, makes stuff. You don't have to remember what happened in November. It was just last month. Good mix of talent, veterans. Highly suggest it. Uh, Definitely check them out. Hooligan CW on Twitter and uh, Instagram, I believe, and then Hooligan Championship Wrestling on Facebook. I believe my next booking is actually the Louisville return for GCW coming up on March 6th. That is going to be at Bourbon Hall, which I've never called a show at or even been inside. So uh, they said it couldn't be done in Kentucky on March 6th at the Bourbon Hall. Doors at 7, bell at 8. You can get tickets already if you go to the GCW social media. The day after that, I have a Generation Next Pro Wrestling show. The 7th of March in Cynthiana, Kentucky. It's a great little town. It's a great little wrestling building. They have a bleacher set up for all the high school games and stuff of that nature, and it's perfect for pro wrestling. I get to call the shows with my good friend, the Lone Wolf old school icon Bobby Blade for those shows, and we just have a total blast. It's a monsoon brain situation there where we have to commentate, make our little jokes, and then silently laugh at each other as we say our dumb stuff. Uh, March 14th, I'm at House of Heat in Lafayette, Indiana for House of Heat Pro Wrestling. Mance Warner with Steph Delander versus Connor Hopkins is the match happening on that show. Bunch of great matches happening on that show, honestly. House of Heat Pro Wrestling on social media. I think their Instagram handle they have a bunch of underscores in it. So just, for the space. So figure that out. Uh, every fourth Sunday of the month, I'm at Grindhouse for Grindhouse Pro Wrestling. It's a Sunday afternoon show. Usually starts around 3 p.m. Sometimes 3:15ish. Sometimes 3:20. Just depends on what's going on. Family friendly entertainment. We just had the Bulldozer Matt Tremont there as a special guest, and there was a big three-way with some big guys at Grindhouse. Marcellus Mack, Herzog, and Robert Ketchum, and they just happened to brawl over to the merch tables and slammed someone into Matt Tremont's merch table, and he was not very happy about that. So he slammed his fist upside the guy's head, and a fork might have gotten involved. Guy might have got busted open. Uh,
Maybe.
he stormed.
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly. I was up in the commentary booth at the arena, and when Marcellus Mack left the building, he was throwing chairs, and I've never seen someone power walk, anger walk out of a building like Marcellus Mack did on Sunday after allegedly getting stabbed by Matt Tremont's fork. Uh, Other stuff I have, Gen X in uh, April 4th. 411. I have a TBA, but I'm booked on that. Grindhouse the fourth Sunday. And then I'm a regular for House of Heat and Grindhouse. So any show you see, House of Heat or Grindhouse, I will be there. Uh, Anytime GCW comes in the Midwest, I try to jump on, at least, get a spot on here or there. Uh, that's pretty much it. I'm slowly getting back into the custom action figure making. So if you want to check out any custom figures, Papa Maniwa Figs on Facebook, Maniwa Figs on Instagram. I need to post some of the newer stuff I've done, but if you're looking for an action figure, I may be able to, you know, get that to you, or I'll send you to my good pal Mike Ruff of roughfigures.com, and he'll get one whipped up for you real good. That's pretty. I'm always available for post commentary work. So if you have a show that doesn't have commentary and you want commentary on it, hit me up and we can figure it out. If you want a team, me and Jess Beesneys can do it together. We have our first post commentary gig together coming up probably next week. So that's exciting. I don't have anything coming up this weekend. There's GCW, so I'm excited to watch that. There's a WWE pay-per-view, so Nick Jr. will be excited to watch that. And I'm probably going to eat a lot of chicken wings and fatty food, which is always a plus in my book.
Okay. And it was Girl Fight's gonna be that
Girl Fight is back in, I think it's May. Let me look. So because they had a couple dates, and one of the dates was like everyone was running, so they couldn't do that date because they're trying to 5/31, so May 31st.
Okay, but has that been released? The first show that they just did with Jess's debut, has that been released yet?
It is not out. It is not out yet. I would expect that to be out by this weekend, if not earlier.
So as people are listening to this, because we are recording this probably, at the beginning of the week, by the time this is released at the end of the week, maybe it'll be out.
Yeah.
And you're gonna want to watch the debut of Jess Beesneys. Be a shame if the other show ends up beating the debut out.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully not.
Release. So, but a lot of stuff going on there with the Maniwas. You mentioned that you were running some social media accounts for these companies.
Yes.
Can I just put a little birdie into your ear to say that, maybe you should just start putting my name on the damn flyers and forcing these people to book me.
Maybe you'll show up.
Maybe I'll show up. Maybe I won't.
American Kickboxer trick. That's what we'll do.
All right. You mentioned Mance Warner on March the 14th.
Yes.
And who was that he was going against?
Connor Hopkins.
I've heard good things about that kid.
The pretty hate machine.
I've heard good things about that kid.
Yeah.
But this is going to wrap up another edition of Fannin's Flashbacks. I'd like to thank Nick for officially joining me on the camera side of the podcast instead of being in the background fixing all my mistakes. Now he got to hear this live and he'll know right where to dig in and start fixing things to make this podcast go for episode 19. Be sure to follow him on social media, and it's Nick Maniwa everywhere.
Yes, everywhere, from Facebook to Cash App to anywhere you can find it. PayPal, anywhere, Nick Maniwa.
Yes. So send him some money. If you run a show, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, hire this man to do this shit full time. No one knows more about the business and has done more without getting his just due than Nick. It's really ridiculous. You go back and re-listen to what he said he did for 9 years on those IWA shows. He can do anything. If you've been following me on social media this week, you know that the cat is out of the bag. The Fannin family has officially announced the return. Nick Maniwa is a member. I hear rumors that his wife's a member, although I have not seen any proof of that. Some other folks out there have posted their photos, but the Fannin family is back Friday night, March the 27th in Indianapolis, Indiana for Black Label Pro. They are at the Squared Circle Expo. So come on out, meet the great Muda, Masahiro Chono. They're going to be in special NWO Japan gear.
Ooh.
And then watch me make my return to pro wrestling after a sabbatical that was long enough that it can legally drive a car.
Oh, yeah.
And right out of the gates, we get to knock off the number one item on the bucket list.
Check.
The dream is fulfilled. Mickey Knuckles is in the Fannin family. That's right. Mickey Knuckles and Jim Fannin are finally doing the damn thing. And it's going to be there in Indianapolis at Black Label Pro as she takes on, what is this, Big Al?
Alice Crowley. The Unipsycho. because
The what?
she one time she rode a unicycle and hit someone with a lariat. So she's the unicycle. I don't think she uses the name anymore, but I gave her that name.
Okay.
Good
All
kid.
right.
I like her a lot. I think it'll be a great match. A good I think they've only had one singles in the past, and then the other things have been like battle royals or something. So
Okay.
uh
Well, there's been several people that have reached out to tell me that I've made a mistake by taking this on, and that Alice Crowley is going to be a lot to handle, but
yes.
uh, I have a feeling that she's not going to be prepared for what I have to offer as well. And if you think I'm letting this pairing with Mickey finally happen and end in a loss, then you people are crazy.
Right.
So, you're going to want to turn out for that one. I've got another booking that hasn't been announced yet, but be
Ooh.
on the lookout for that one. And I'm licensed in Kentucky, so that shows how thorough they pay attention down there for
Right.
things. And let's get the Maniwas and the Fannin family on the same show here
Right.
without Nick having to post funny little things on and go rogue on Twitter to because if I just see my name on a flyer for Kentucky, I'm not just showing up since it's a 7-hour drive
Right.
for me. But if
Maybe
you're
if
a
you're at
wrestler,
maybe if you're at the cabin, it's a little
yeah, it's a
closer.
little closer to the cabin, but not well, it's not all that much. It's
Right,
maybe
right.
about half the trip, but still you can reach out at bookjimfannin@gmail.com. I can get you in touch with a lot of Fannin family approved talent.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about them on the podcast. We got the Maniwas, Mickey Knuckles, John Wayne Murdoch, Reed Bentley. Just Bees Knees is taking bookings now. Spider Nate Webb, Tank, Toby Klein, basically anybody with a historical connection to
Right.
IWA Mid South that has had paths cross with me if they've been on the podcast. Let's run it back together.
Yeah.
So let it be written. So let it be done. Good day.